Beneath the radiant glow of twin suns, Krasley once stood as a testament to unity and ambition. Its crystalline cities soared into the heavens, their glass and metal spires catching the light like prisms, a reflection of the Krass' boundless ingenuity. The Krass, a tall, graceful species with light blue fur, flowing dark blue hair, and luminous black eyes, spoke a single language, their culture woven from shared dreams of progress. They adorned their cities with vibrant tapestries depicting their history, and their festivals filled the air with music that echoed across continents. Their greatest triumph was the Argob moon base, a marvel carved into one of Krasley's 7 moons. It was more than a settlement, it was a bold declaration of their intent to conquer the stars. To outsiders, Krasley was a utopia, a world where harmony and innovation thrived. Yet beneath this gleaming facade, tension simmered, unseen but insidious, waiting to fracture the planet's fragile unity. Krasley's harmony was a delicate illusion. The planet's 2 continents, Orin in the northern hemisphere and Kaido spanning the equator and south, grew apart, their pride and rivalry deepening like cracks in stone. Orin's crystalline metropolises, powered by intricate trade networks and cutting-edge technology, stood as monuments to sophistication. Its people, who called themselves Orinite, saw their continent as Krasley's heart, the epicenter of culture and progress. They adorned their spires with glowing runes, symbols of their intellectual dominance, and boasted of their role in the Argob colony. Kaido, by contrast, was a realm of untamed jungles and abundant resources. The Cadents, rugged and resourceful, prided themselves on their connection to the land. They harvested rare minerals and exotic flora, fueling Orin's gleaming cities. In their communal gatherings, they told stories of the jungle's spirits, believing their labor sustained Krasley's prosperity. Yet they resented Orin's arrogance, seeing themselves as the planet's true backbone, their contributions undervalued by their northern kin. For centuries, the continents coexisted in a tense but peaceful balance, their rivalry tempered by mutual dependence. But as time passed, mistrust eroded their shared vision, and whispers of division grew louder. The discovery of a volatile energy source within Krasley's molten core ignited the final fracture. Named Virilium by the Cadents who unearthed it, this radiant substance promised limitless power, capable of revolutionizing energy, transportation, and even space exploration. Kaido hailed it as their triumph, a gift from the jungle's heart. Orin, however, saw it as a threat to their dominance, fearing Kaido's newfound leverage would shift the planet's balance of power. Diplomatic summits collapsed into bitter accusations. Orin demanded shared control of Virilium, while Kaido accused them of greed. What began as a race to harness the resource escalated into militarization. Orin's sleek war machines clashed with Kaido's guerrilla tactics, honed in the jungle's depths. The Krass, once united by their dreams, now turned their ingenuity to destruction. The first atomic warhead detonated with a blinding flash, outshining the twin suns. Its shockwave leveled Kaido's jungle cities, reducing vibrant settlements to smoldering rubble. Orin's retaliation was swift and merciless, their crystalline spires crumbling under Kaido's counterstrikes. Within weeks, the planet was a pyre of ash and molten rivers, its air choked with poison. 99% of Krasley lay in ruins, its once proud civilization reduced to silence beneath the unyielding gaze of its twin suns. Few escaped the apocalypse. On Argob, 100 scientists watched in horror as their homeworld burned. Stranded on a moon never meant for long-term survival, they faced dwindling supplies and a barren landscape of jagged rock and thin air. Their dreams of stellar conquest now mocked them, replaced by the grim reality of isolation. On Krasley, a small enclave of Cadents survived in the heart of Kaido's untouched jungles. Shielded by dense canopies, they emerged to find their world unrecognizable. The ruins of their kin's cities loomed like ghosts, their crystalline remnants a haunting contrast to the jungle's vibrant life. These survivors, cut off from their technological past, clung to the land, their stories of the forbidden grounds warning against the ruins' lingering dangers. 10,000 years after the war that shattered Krasley, the planet had been reborn in the embrace of nature. Where crystalline cities once pierced the heavens, dense jungles now sprawled, their roots entwining the bones of a forgotten era. Rivers pulsed with life, their waters teeming with iridescent creatures, while the air hummed with the calls of alien beasts, vibrant and untamed. The twin suns bathed the canopy in golden light, a stark contrast to the ash-choked skies of the past. The Crass, once architects of the stars, had shed their technological legacy. They lived as hunter-gatherers in villages woven into the jungle canopy, their homes of braided vines swaying gently above the forest floor. They revered the jungle as a living deity, its rhythms guiding their lives, and offered prayers to the twin suns, believing them guardians of their world. Their songs, passed down through generations, spoke of harmony with the land, but also of caution. Tales of the forbidden grounds, where ancient ruins lay shrouded in overgrowth, cursed by the spirits of their lost kin. These ruins, buried beneath soil and vine, were a mystery to the Crass. Their advanced past had faded into myth, replaced by a simpler existence. Yet the elders' whispers carried a warning: to tread upon the forbidden grounds was to invite the wrath of the ancients. Despite their fears, the Crass relied on the ruins for survival. The forbidden grounds held precious metals, copper, iron, and rare alloys, salvaged from the wreckage of their ancestors' cities. Only the village shaman, chosen for their spiritual strength, dared to venture into these haunted places. Before each journey, the shaman performed a solemn ritual, coating their body in thick, river clay mud to shield against the spirit's malice. They had to return before the mud dried, lest the protection fail. Navigating the ruins' treacherous terrain, the shaman moved with care, wary of radioactive scars left by the ancient war. They gathered fragments of metal, their hands trembling as they brushed against crumbling structures etched with faded symbols. Back in the village, the salvaged materials underwent a sacred cleansing. Submerged in a solution of crushed herbs and spring water, believed to purge both spiritual and physical taint, the metals were purified. Only then could they be forged into tools, weapons, and ornaments, each piece a testament to the Crass resilience and their uneasy reverence for a past they no longer understood. In a village nestled high in the canopy, Ayatu, daughter of Chief Bray, stood apart. While other children played among the vines or tended to communal tasks, Ayatu sought solitude. Her sharp black eyes, framed by cascading dark blue hair, scanned the jungle with a restless curiosity. She moved through the trees with a hunter's grace, her bow, crafted from the heartwood of an ironvine tree, always at her side. Ayatu hunted not for survival but for the thrill of it, her heart racing with each pursuit. Her boldness earned the villagers' admiration, but her reckless ventures near the forbidden ground sparked unease. The elders warned of the ruins' curse, yet Ayatu felt drawn to them, as if their silent stones whispered secrets meant for her alone. At night, she dreamed of gleaming spires and strange machines, visions she could neither explain nor ignore. Bray watched his daughter with a mix of pride and worry. As chief, he valued her strength, but her defiance tested his patience. "The jungle is your home, Ayatu," he'd say, "but it demands respect, not conquest." She would nod, her eyes distant, already longing for the next adventure. At dawn, before the village stirred, Ayatu slipped from her hammock, her bow slung over her shoulder and a quiver of arrows at her back. Today, she sought to prove herself by facing the jungle's deadliest predator, the Shylock. A creature of nightmares, the Shylock prowled with 6 scaled legs, each tipped with razor claws. Its sinuous body, cloaked in oil-slick scales, gleamed in the sunlight, and its serpentine head bore glowing yellow eyes and fangs that could crush bone. Few spoke its name, and fewer still dared to hunt it. Ayatu moved through the jungle with silent precision, her steps muffled on the damp earth. The forest thrummed with life, birdsong, rustling leaves, the hum of insects, but her senses were attuned to the Shylock's low, rumbling growl, like thunder before a storm. Hours passed before a sharp, metallic scent stung her nose. She crouched, heart pounding, and followed the trail to a clearing. There, bathed in dappled light, the Shylock slept beneath a gnarled tree, its coiled body a spring ready to snap. Ayata's breath hitched, but her resolve held firm. She nocked an arrow, her bowstring taut, and aimed. The Shylock's eyes snapped open, locking onto her. Time froze. With a deafening roar, it lunged, sensing the heat radiating from her body. Ayatu rolled aside, its jaws snapping inches from her. A claw grazed her leg, drawing blood, but adrenaline dulled the pain. Her first arrow glanced off its scales, skittering into the undergrowth. Undaunted, she scaled a tree in a fluid leap, her movements as swift as the beast below. From her perch, Ayata studied the Shylock, noting its eyes as its only vulnerability. She drew another arrow, steadied her breath, and fired. The shot struck true, piercing its left eye. The creature howled, thrashing in agony. Ayata dropped to the ground, firing arrow after arrow into its weak points. At last, with a final, guttural cry, the Shylock collapsed, its colorless blood pooling on the jungle floor. Ayatu approached warily, her bow still drawn. She touched its scaled flank, feeling the fading warmth of its life. Triumph surged through her, she had slain the jungle's terror. Only then did she notice the blood trickling down her leg. As a trophy, she claimed the Shylock's claws and prized fangs, her heart alight with victory. Ayatu returned to the village at dusk, the Shylock's jaws slung over her shoulder. The villagers gasped, children crowding around with wide-eyed wonder, while elders exchanged hushed murmurs. Few warriors had ever felled a Shylock. Bray stood at the heart of the gathering, his broad frame casting a long shadow. His eyes, sharp beneath graying fur, flickered with pride and anger. "Ayatu," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd, "you have done what few dare. Your strength honors us." Ayatu grinned, expecting praise, but Bray's face hardened. "Yet this," he said, pointing to the jaws, "is reckless. You risked your life for what? Glory? To prove a point?" "I hunted because I could," Ayata shot back, her tone defiant. "Because I'm not afraid." Bray stepped closer, towering over her. "Bravery without wisdom is a path to ruin. I know your strength, Ayatu, but I will not lose you to pride. You are my daughter, meant for more than a hunter's grave." Ayatu's defiance wavered under his gaze. She lowered her eyes, fists clenched. Bray sighed, resting a heavy hand on her shoulder. "Promise me," he said, softer now. "No more Shylock hunts. From this day, they are forbidden." Torn between her love for her father and her yearning for freedom, Ayata hesitated. "It's not fair," she murmured, but nodded reluctantly. That night, in her hammock, Ayata lay awake, Bray's words echoing in her mind. She understood his fear, his love for her, but the jungle's call was stronger. The thrill of the hunt, the mystery of the forbidden grounds, stirred her soul. The Shylock's blood on her hands was a promise of more victories to come. As the twin suns rose, their light filtering through the canopy, Ayatu made a silent vow. She would not stop. The jungle was her freedom, her truth, and she would claim it, no matter the cost.
Argop, Krasley's largest moon, was a wasteland of jagged rock and powdery grey dust, its sparse vegetation clawing its survival under a thin, unforgiving atmosphere.
Cosmic radiation scoured its surface, a relentless reminder that this barren world was never meant to sustain life. For the 100 Kras scientists stranded there during the Great War, Argop was both prison and crucible when war engulfed Krasley. The scientists watched in horror as their homeworld burned. Radio signals fell silent, supply ships vanished, and the vibrant planet they loved was swallowed by ash and ruin. Isolated on a moon designed as a research outpost, not a colony, they faced a grim truth. Survival was a fleeting hope, and Argop offered little mercy. The early years were a battle against despair. The scientists, Brilliant but unprepared, scavenged meager resources, wiry plants that clung to rocky crevices, and skittering, insect-like creatures too small to sustain them.
Starvation loomed, and the moon's radiation gnawed at their bodies, a constant threat to their fragile existence. Amid Argop's dangers lurked the Limit, the moon's apex predator. Sleek and cat-like, its pale, glistening skin merged with the rocky terrain, rendering it nearly invisible. Its long, whip-thin tail bristled with venomous spines, delivering a paralytic toxin that felled prey in seconds.
The scientists feared the Limit, its glowing eyes haunting their nightmares. Desperation, however, sparked ingenuity. The scientists began to trap and study the Limit, risking their lives to unravel its secrets.
Their breakthrough came with the discovery.
The Limit's blood held compounds that neutralized Argop's radiation.
By synthesizing this blood into a serum and combining it with their dwindling anti-radiation drugs, they crafted a lifeline, a treatment that shielded them from the moon's deadly rays.
Over generations, the serum reshaped their bodies.
Their light blue fur and flowing dark blue hair vanished, replaced by smooth, pale skin suited to Argop's dim light. Their faces elongated, their large black eyes growing wider to pierce the moon's perpetual twilight.
The crust scientists became Argobians, a new race forged by necessity and the Limit's strange alchemy. The predator they once dreaded became their savior, its blood a sacred cornerstone of their survival.
Demanded more than science, it required purpose. The isolation of Argop eroded the scientists' spirits. Their dreams of Kresley's glory reduced to memories.
Without hope, they risked succumbing to despair. Into this void stepped Borso, a charismatic scientist-turned-leader.
With a voice
that could stir hearts and a mind sharp enough to wield myth as a weapon, Borso saw that unity required a shared cause. He crafted a story to bind the Argobians. The betrayal. Borso claimed the Kress had not been lost to war, but had deliberately forsaken their kin.
Driven by greed, the Crassans had severed ties with Argop, abandoning the scientists to die.
This tale, though woven from half-truths, ignited a fire in the Argobians.
It gave their suffering meaning, transforming their exile into a narrative
of injustice and resilience. The myth took root. Children learned it as truth. Their songs mourned the Kras's treachery, and Borso enshrined it in Argop culture. He oversaw the construction of the Dark Pyramid, a towering obsidian structure etched with scenes of their abandonment. This monument became the heart of Argop's identity, a symbol of their pain and defiance. Over centuries, the Argobians ceased to be Kras exiles. They were Argobians, a people united by a wound that refused to heal for millennia. The Argobians teetered on the edge of extinction.
Their early years saw technology falter. Their advanced tools lost to time and scarcity, yet their hatred for the Kras fueled their resolve.
Slowly, they rediscovered their scientific heritage, adapting it to Argop's harsh realities. They
built sealed habitats to shield against radiation, harnessed geothermal energy from the moon's core, and engineered crops to thrive in barren soil. Their bodies continued to evolve.
The Limit serum, now a ritual of birth, ensured each generation was stronger, better suited to Argop's demands.
Their pale, elongated forms and wide, unblinking eyes became badges of their transformation. Stark contrast to the Kras they despised to be wide the time of the story. After 10,000 years, the Argobians had forged a civilization to rival Kresley's ancient glory.
Their single city, a labyrinth of domed structures and glowing conduits, housed 1 million souls.
They mastered space travel, their sleek ships piercing the void. Yet their gaze turned not to the stars, but to Kresley, a world they believed owed
them retribution. The Argobians lived in disciplined austerity, their drab, charcoal-hued garments reflecting their utilitarian ethos.
Their low birth rate, a consequence of Argop's environment and the Limit serum's side effects, made every
child a treasure. Families rarely bore more than 2 offspring, and the rituals of birth and death were sacred, marked by solemn ceremonies beneath the Dark Pyramid's shadow. Their society was bound by order and purpose, driven by the myth of betrayal. Schools taught of Kresley's treachery, engineers designed ships for a reckoning, and leaders spoke of reclaiming their birthright. The Argobians were no longer a stranded few, they were a people poised to rewrite their history, their eyes fixed on
a planet they had never known but could never forgive.
The Argobians' first space voyages to Kresley were cloaked in caution. Under the iron rule of the Council of Argob, led by Hashem, these missions followed a strict mandate: observe, extract, and avoid the Crass at all costs. The explorers' goal was not reunion but exploitation, to plunder the ruins of Krasli's ancient civilization for resources to fuel Argob's ambitions. Their sleek, silver craft glided silently through the jungle skies, landing only in the forbidden grounds, where vine-choked spires and shattered domes lay untouched by the Crass. Hashem, a fervent disciple of the betrayal myth, saw the Crass not as kin but as traitors, enemies who had forsaken their Argobian ancestors. His leadership was absolute, his hatred unyielding. He ensured the missions remained secret, known only to the Council and the elite explorers tasked with stripping Krasli's past. To Hashem, the planet was a prize to be claimed, its people a relic to be subdued. Not all Argobians shared Hashem's venom. Chad, a scientist and explorer of rare intellect, sought knowledge over vengeance. With his friend Kubel, a fellow scholar, Chad had spent years studying Krasli's ruins, deciphering faded glyphs and salvaging data cores from crumbling archives. His pale, elongated face and wide black eyes reflected a quiet curiosity, a stark contrast to Hashem's cold resolve. Through meticulous research, Chad uncovered a truth that shattered the betrayal myth. Scouring ancient records buried in the ruins, he pieced together the real history: the silence from Krasli was no act of malice. Scientists had not been abandoned, they had been forgotten in the chaos of a great war had razed the planet, its atomic fires consuming cities and kin alike. The Arg annihilation. Borso's tale, born of desperation, was a lie that had shaped a civilization. The discovery weighed heavily on Chad. To reveal it would unravel Argobian society, tearing apart the Dark Pyramid's legacy and the hatred that bound his people. Yet silence felt like betrayal of another kind. His fascination with the Crass, jungle dwellers descended from the war's survivors, grew, their existence a living link to the truth he guarded. Kubel, ever loyal, urged caution, but Chad's heart stirred with a dangerous hope, to bridge the divide between their worlds. It was Chad's craft that Ayata glimpsed slicing through Krasli's dawn sky, its metallic hull glinting like a falling star. To her, crouched among the forbidden ground's tangled roots, he was an enigma, a being from beyond her world, alien and unknowable. Yet Chad, stepping from his craft, was as tied to Krasli's story as she was, his Argobian form a distant echo of her Crass heritage. He moved through the ruins with reverence, his gloved hands tracing the weathered contours of a shattered spire. His large black eyes scanned the overgrowth, unaware of Ayata's gaze. She clutched her iron vine bough, her heart a drumbeat of fear and fascination. The stranger's pale skin and hairless frame were unlike anything she knew, yet his quiet awe mirrored her own when she wandered these cursed places. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met, Ayatu's sharp and wary, Chad's wide and startled. Time held its breath. Ayatu tensed, her arrow half knocked, but Chad raised a hand, his gesture hesitant, almost pleading. Before words could bridge the gap, a rustle in the jungle broke the spell. Ayatu vanished into the shadows, leaving Chad alone, his heart racing with the weight of what he'd seen, a Crass, alive and defiant. This encounter, brief and unspoken, was a spark. For Chad, it was proof of the Crass resilience, a challenge to the betrayal's lies. For Ayatu, it was a mystery that deepened her pull to the ruins, a glimpse of a world beyond her jungle. Their meeting held the promise of truth, reconciliation, and a collision that could reshape both their peoples. Hashem's rule was driven by necessity as much as hatred. Argob's resources, minerals, energy, even fertile soil, were nearly exhausted, threatening his people's survival. Beneath his public devotion to the betrayal, Hashem harbored a secret agenda, to conquer Krasli. Using Argob's advanced technology, he envisioned a slow, systematic takeover, transforming the Argobians into overlords of the planet they once called home. The Crass, now 100 million strong, dwarfed the Argobians' million. A direct assault would be suicide. Instead, Hashem schemed to corrupt Argobian society from within, fostering a doctrine of dominance. He pushed for militarized expeditions, training explorers as scouts for a future invasion. His vision was a crassly reshaped in Argob's image, its jungles tamed, its people subjugated. Chad and Kubel, through whispered conversations and stolen glances at council plans, uncovered Hashem's plot. Chad's knowledge of the true history fueled his horror. Another war would echo the Great War's devastation. Kubel, pragmatic but loyal, saw the danger in opposing Hashem openly. Together, they resolved to act in secret, seeking a way to thwart Hashem's ambitions and protect the Krass from a new betrayal. Ayatu crouched among the jungle's dense foliage, her sharp black eyes tracking the stranger who moved through the forbidden grounds with uncanny precision. The Argobian, as he'd named himself, was a mystery, his pale, elongated face catching the dappled light filtering through the canopy, his movements deliberate and alien. Chad wielded a handheld device that glowed soft blue, its faint hum echoing as he scanned the crumbling ruins. Ayatu's heart thrummed with curiosity and caution, wondering what secrets he sought in her world's haunted past. She shadowed him silently, her lithe frame blending with the vines, her iron vine bough gripped tightly. But she underestimated Argobian technology. Chad's device pinged, a faint heat signature flickering on its screen. He paused, his wide black eyes sweeping the trees. Ayatu held her breath, certain she was unseen, until their gazes locked. Her pulse spiked. Chad raised a small device, its low hum filling the air. Before Ayatu could react, a pulse of light enveloped her, freezing her limbs as if bound by invisible cords. She stood rigid, her bow useless in her stiffened grasp. Chad approached warily, his scanner tracing her form. The blue light danced over her light blue fur and cascading dark blue hair, his expression shifting from caution to curiosity. "You're Krass," he murmured, his voice soft through his translator. The paralysis faded swiftly, and Ayatu stumbled back, regaining control. Instinctively, she raised her bow, arrow nocked, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Stay back," she warned, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Chad didn't advance. He lowered his device, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I mean no harm," he said, his melodic voice filtered through the translator, halting but clear. "I am Chad, from Argob. I study your past." Ayatu's grip tightened, suspicion warring with curiosity. "Why trespass on the forbidden grounds?" she demanded. Chad gestured to the ruins, his eyes softening with a longing she recognized. "To understand who we were. To find truth." His words stirred something in Ayatu, her own pull to these cursed places, her dreams of a lost world. Slowly, she lowered her bow, though her stance remained guarded. "You're not welcome here," she said, but her tone softened. "What truth do you seek?" Their exchange, cautious and halting, sparked an uneasy alliance. Ayatu's insatiable curiosity outweighed her mistrust. She offered to guide Chad through the jungle, sharing her knowledge of its hidden paths. In return, Chad spoke of Krassly's ancient civilization, tales of soaring cities and starbound dreams that felt like myths to her. Each revelation fueled her wonder, binding them in a shared quest for answers. As their trust grew, Chad offered Ayatu a gift beyond her wildest dreams, a glimpse of her world from the stars. He invited her aboard his spacecraft, a sleek vessel of smooth metal that pulsed with quiet energy. Ayatu hesitated, her instincts wary of the unknown, but her curiosity burned brighter. She stepped inside, her breath catching at the sight of glowing blue walls and panels that hummed with life. Chad secured her in a cushioned seat, his movements gentle. "Hold on," he said, a spark of excitement in his voice. The craft lifted, the jungle shrinking to a sea of green below. Ayatu's heart raced as they pierced the clouds, crassly unfolding in a tapestry of jungles, rivers, and distant peaks. Then they breached the atmosphere. The sky darkened, stars igniting like embers in an endless void. Krassly hung before them, its twin suns casting a golden halo over its curves. Ayatu's eyes widened, her voice a whisper. "It's beautiful." Chad glanced at her, his stoic features softening into a faint smile. "It is," he said, his gaze lingering. "And so are you." Ayatu met his eyes, her heart skipping at the warmth in his stare. In that moment, he was no longer alien but a kindred spirit, his wonder echoing her own. The vastness of the stars seemed to shrink, their shared awe drawing them closer. The next day, they met again in the jungle's embrace. Ayatu paused beneath a tree laden with golden fruit, its branches bowing under their weight. She plucked one and offered it to Chad with a playful grin. "Try this." Chad turned the fruit in his pale hands, studying it like a relic. "What is it?" he asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Food," Ayatu said, laughing. "Eat." Chad took a cautious bite, his eyes widening as the fruit's sweet, tangy juice burst across his tongue. "This," he stammered, his composure unraveling. "It's extraordinary." Ayatu's laughter echoed, bright and unrestrained, startling birds from the canopy. "You've been missing out, Chad of Argob." He smiled, savoring the taste. "Argob has nothing like this. Our sustenance is functional." "Functional?" Ayatu tilted her head, intrigued. "What's that mean?" Chad explained that Argobians consumed synthesized liquid nutrients, colorless, tasteless, designed for efficiency. "Chewing became obsolete," he said. "Our teeth shrank, our mouths adapted. Eating is a task, not a joy." Ayata's laughter rang out again. "No fruit. No roasted meat. No wonder you look so grim." Chad's expression turned thoughtful. "Perhaps we are." Ayatu's teasing softened as she handed him another fruit. "Here, try this." Later, she shared roasted meat, seared over a small fire. Chad's reaction was childlike wonder, his eyes bright as he savored the smoky, tender flesh. "It has texture," he said, awestruck. "Flavor. Warmth." Ayatu smirked, watching him relish each bite. "Your moon sounds like a lifeless place," she teased. Chad met her gaze, his features softening. "It's not home. Not like this." His words carried a quiet longing, a confession that resonated with Ayatu's own restless heart. Their meetings grew frequent, each moment weaving a deeper thread between them. Ayatu taught Chad the jungle's secrets, its hidden springs, its fleeting creatures. Chad shared glimpses of Argob's stark beauty and the weight of his people's myths. Their differences. Her vibrant fur, his pale skin, her wild freedom, his disciplined precision, only deepened their fascination. Yet their bond was forbidden. The Kras shunned the forbidden grounds, and Ayata knew her village would see Chad as a threat. On Argob, Hashem's hatred for the Kras cast a shadow over any connection with their kin. Each stolen moment carried a risk, a truth they both felt but dared not voice. As they sat beneath the twin sun's golden light, sharing laughter and stories, Ayatu's hand brushed Chad's. Neither pulled away. In that fleeting touch, they glimpsed a future where their worlds might heal, but also the danger that could tear them apart. The jungle hummed with life, its air heavy with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. Ayatu knelt beside a cluster of iridescent blossoms, their petals pulsing with soft light in the dappled sun. Behind her, Chad tripped over a gnarled root, his pale face flushing as he caught himself. "Watch your step," Ayatu teased, rising to her full height, her light blue fur glistening with dew. "The jungle doesn't coddle the clumsy." Chad adjusted his satchel, his wide black eyes scanning the forest floor with mock indignation. "On Argob, the ground doesn't conspire against you," he said, a dry humor softening his melodic voice. Ayata's laugh rang out, warm and unrestrained. "Your moons made you soft, Chad." "Soft?" He raised an eyebrow, meeting her gaze. Without Argobian ingenuity, I wouldn't be breathing your jungle air. And you wouldn't know why these flowers glow. He nodded toward the blossoms. Fine, wise one, Ayata said, crossing her arms with a grin. Enlighten me. Chad knelt, his slender fingers brushing the petals. They contain luminophores, compounds that emit light. We synthesize similar ones for tunnel lighting on Argob, but these, he paused, admiring their shimmer. These are far more beautiful. Luminophores, Ayatu echoed, the word foreign yet fascinating. So they make their own light? Exactly, Chad said, standing. At night, the glow draws pollinators. Beauty with purpose. Ayatu's sharp eyes sparkled. You see the world so differently. I see colors, you see reasons. And you, Chad replied, his voice softening, see the jungle's soul, its rhythms, its secrets. I envy that. Their exchange, light yet profound, wove another thread in their growing bond, their differences bridging two worlds through shared wonder. Their meetings evolved into a dance of learning, their guarded walls crumbling. One afternoon, Ayatu led Chad to a clearing where Karyu tubers grew, their waxy leaves catching the sun. These are edible, she said, pointing. Roast them first, or they'll make you sick. Chad crouched, studying the plants. How do you tell the safe ones? They look identical. Ayatu smirked. You're jungle blind. See the leaves? She held one up. 3 points for safe, 5 for poison. 3, not 5, Chad murmured, committing it to memory. And if you're still unsure, Ayatu added, eyes glinting, let me taste it first. If I don't keel over, you're good. Chad's laugh, a rare, unguarded sound, surprised them both. On Argob, laughter was a luxury, smothered by discipline and duty. With Ayatu, he felt a spark of joy he hadn't known he craved. In return, Chad shared his world's tools. One evening, as the twin suns sank, painting the sky in fiery hues, he revealed a compact scanner from his satchel, its blue glow casting shadows. This analyzes soil, plants, even air, he said, pressing it to a patch of moss. Symbols flickered on the screen. Ayatu leaned close, her breath warm against his cheek. It knows all that from a touch. Not magic, Chad said, smiling. Science, observing, understanding. Ayatu shook her head, awestruck. Your world feels like a dream. I can't imagine living with such things. And I can't imagine living without them, Chad said. But your jungle, it's alive, vibrant. Argob's a shadow by comparison. Their lessons, woven with laughter, deepened their trust, each glimpse into the other's world tightening the fragile thread between them. As their bond grew, so did the shadow of their worlds divide. One night, beneath a canopy of stars, they sat on a moss-covered log, the jungle's chorus a soft hum around them. Ayatu's voice was heavy with fear. My people would shun me if they knew, she said. Meeting you, guiding you, they'd see it as betrayal. Chad's expression darkened. The Argobian Council would exile me. To them, the Crass are savages, relics of a lie. They'd never understand what I've found in you. Ayatu searched his face, her sharp eyes softening. Then why risk it? Why keep coming back? Chad paused, his gaze steady. Because the betrayal is a myth, built on lies. I came for truth, and found it in you. You're not what they say. You're everything. Ayatu's breath hitched, her heart racing. The world faded, the jungle, the stars, their fears. There was only Chad, his pale face glowing faintly in the scanner's light, his eyes holding a warmth that felt like home. I don't know what lies ahead, Chad said, his voice barely above a whisper, but this, us, is real. I won't let them take it. Ayatu's fingers brushed his, tentative but sure. Neither will I. Their touch lingered, a silent vow against the forces that would tear them apart. Their love was a delicate flame, flickering against the winds of mistrust. Ayata dreamed of a world where Kras and Argobians could stand together, where jungle and stars could coexist. Is it possible? She asked one night, her voice soft as they gazed at the twin moons. Chad's eyes traced the silver light. I want to believe it is, he said. But Hashim and those like him thrive on division. Centuries of lies won't unravel easily. Then we'll unravel them, Ayata said, her voice firm. We'll show them another way. Chad's smile was bittersweet. You make it sound so simple. It's not, Ayata admitted, her hand finding his. But if we don't try, who will? He squeezed her hand, his slender fingers warm against her fur. Together, then. Beneath the jungle's embrace, their bond burned bright, a beacon of hope in a world fractured by shadows. Yet its fragility lingered, a quiet warning of the storms to come. For months, Ayatu and Chad guarded their secret, meeting in the jungle's depths or among the forbidden ground's vine-choked ruins. But secrets are fragile, and one fateful day, their sanctuary shattered. Ayatu guided Chad through the ruins, her voice bright as she shared the elders' tales of cursed spirits. Chad listened, his pale face catching the filtered sunlight, his scanner humming softly. Neither heard the faint rustle of leaves behind them. A group of villagers, wary of Ayatu's frequent absences, had trailed her. Emerging from the trees, they froze at the sight of Chad, his hairless form and wide, black eyes a specter from their myths. To them, he was a gray, a harbinger of doom from the elders' warnings. Monster, one villager hissed, trembling. She's with a gray. Ayatu spun, her heart plummeting as she met their horrified gazes. Chad stepped protectively before her, his slender frame tense but resolute. The villagers recoiled, their fear palpable. He'll curse us, a woman whispered. Those eyes, soulless, another muttered. A burly villager lunged forward, seizing Ayata's arm. You've doomed us, he growled, dragging her toward the village. Ayata struggled, but the group closed in, their murmurs a tide of betrayal. Chad followed at a distance, his heart pounding, powerless against their rage. The village glowed with torchlight, shadows dancing on woven homes as the elders formed a circle at its heart. Ayatu was forced to her knees before them, her father, Chief Bray, towering above her, his face a mask of grief and fury. You've betrayed us, Ayatu, Bray said, his voice quaking. You brought a gray into our midst. Do you grasp the curse you've invited? Ayatu met his gaze, her dark eyes pleading. Father, he's no monster. Chad seeks truth, not harm. Please, listen. Truth, an elder barked, his finger jabbing toward her. That creature's pale skin and empty eyes mark him as a gray. The stories warn of their treachery, and you've defied our laws by consorting with him. He's not here to hurt us. Ayatu rose, voice fierce despite the elders' glares. He studies our past, who we were. If you just hear him, silence. Bray's roar cut through the night, silencing the crowd. He stepped closer, pain etching his features. Your actions endanger us all. The Greys are a curse. You've betrayed your people, your family. Ayatu's voice broke, raw with defiance and sorrow. I didn't betray you. I love him. A gasp rippled through the villagers, their murmurs swelling with shock. Bray's face drained of color, his voice a whisper. You, what? I love him, Ayata repeated, steady now. Chad's not cursed. He's different, like me. Bray's eyes closed, his shoulders slumping under the weight of her words. When they opened, his gaze was steel. You leave me no choice, he said, voice heavy with sorrow. You are banished, Ayatu. Leave this village, your people, and never return. As the elders dispersed, Ayatu's sisters, Kira and Sari, rushed to her. Kira, barely 12, clung to her arm, tears streaming down her face. "Don't go, Ayatu," she sobbed. "Please." Sari, older but no less fierce, glared at Bray. "She's your daughter. You can't do this." Their mother, Liha, stepped forward, her fur pale with anguish. "Bray, this is too harsh. She's young, reckless, but she doesn't deserve exile. She broke our laws," Bray said, weary but unyielding. "She brought a gray among us. The punishment stands. Let her undergo the cleansing ritual," Liha urged. "Let her atone and stay with us. Don't tear our family apart." Ayatu shook her head, her voice resolute. "No. I won't." The crowd stilled, stunned by her defiance. "I won't renounce him," Ayatu said, her eyes blazing. "If staying means lying about what I feel, I'd rather leave." Bray's jaw tightened, tears glistening in his eyes. "Then go," he whispered. "And may the jungle be kinder than we have." Chad lingered at the village's edge, his presence a lightning rod for fear. Villagers shrank from him, their whispers venomous. When he leaned against a tree, a woman shrieked, "Burn it. It's tainted." Kindling piled at the tree's base, flames roaring up its trunk as if purging a plague. The fire's heat stung Chad's skin, but he stood silent, his heart with Ayatu. Bray approached, his gaze hard. "Leave, Gray. You don't belong here. Return to your world and stay away." Chad met his eyes, then turned, the echo of Ayatu's sister's cries trailing him into the jungle. Ayatu strode into the jungle, her bow slung over her shoulder, her clothes all that remained of her life. Behind her, flames devoured her possessions, hammock, tools, water pouch, reduced to ash as the villagers declared them cursed. Smoke curled toward the twin moons, a bitter farewell. She didn't look back, her step steady despite the ache in her chest. Hours later, Chad found Ayatu by the river where their paths first crossed. She sat on the bank, her shoulders slumped, silent tears tracing paths through her fur. "I'm sorry," Chad said, settling beside her, his voice soft with guilt. Ayatu stared at the water, her voice hollow. "They think I cursed them. My father, my sisters, they believe I'm a traitor." "They're wrong," Chad said, his tone firm. "You brought truth, not a curse. Their fear blinds them." Ayatu turned to him, pain raw in her eyes. "I have nothing now. No home, no family. You have me," Chad said, unwavering. "Come to Argob. I'll keep you safe. I swear it." Ayatu's laugh was bitter. "Your people will despise me as much as mine despise you. Then we'll face them together," Chad said, his hand finding hers. "You're not alone." For a long moment, Ayatu studied him, her gaze softening. She nodded, a faint spark of resolve in her eyes. "All right. Let's go." As dawn's first light pierced the canopy, Ayatu and Chad stood side by side, two exiles bound by love and a fragile hope for a world where they could belong. Argob was a world of sharp edges and cold light, its barren expanse a stark betrayal of the jungles Ayatu once called home. Jagged rocks and powdery gray dust stretched beneath a thin atmosphere, the distant stars casting a hollow glow compared to Krasley's twin suns. The air bit at her skin, sterile and unyielding, a far cry from the jungle's warm embrace. The radiation serum, a necessity for survival on Argob, exacted a cruel toll. Within weeks, Ayatu's light blue fur fell away, leaving her skin raw and exposed, save for the dark blue hair cascading down her back. Her once powerful frame grew gaunt, the serum draining her appetite and strength. Each dose felt like a theft, stripping her of the vitality that had defined her. The synthetic liquid sustenance Argobians consumed was a lifeless mockery of food. Its bland, viscous texture paled against the memory of Krasley's golden fruits and smoky roasted meat. More than food, Ayatu ached for her world, the rustle of leaves, the calls of alien creatures, the earth's pulse beneath her feet. At night, in the cramped, metallic quarters Chad had secured, she closed her eyes, willing the jungle's hum to drown out the habitat's sterile hum. But dawn revealed only cold walls, a relentless reminder of her exile. Chad saw Ayatu's suffering, and it cut him deeply. He had promised her safety, but Argob was stealing her spirit. Determined to ease her pain, he turned to Kubel, his trusted friend and fellow explorer. Kubel, intrigued by Ayatu and moved by her plight, agreed to help. One evening, Kubel returned from a Krasley mission, a cloth bundle tucked under his arm. In Chad's quarters, he unwrapped it, revealing golden fruits, their dew-kissed skins gleaming. Ayatu's breath caught, tears welling in her dark eyes. "For me," she whispered, voice trembling. Kubel's pale face softened with a smile. "Chad said you missed them. I thought they might bring a piece of home." Ayatu lifted a fruit, its weight familiar in her trembling hands. She bit into it, the sweet, tangy burst flooding her senses with memories of jungle sunsets. For the first time in weeks, a genuine smile broke through her grief. "Thank you," she said, voice thick with gratitude. Chad and Kubel smuggled more Krasley foods, fruits, herbs, even a rare piece of roasted meat, past the council's watchful eyes. The smoky aroma of meat one evening filled their quarters, a fleeting echo of Ayatu's past. These acts couldn't erase her exile's sting, but they were a tether, proof she wasn't entirely forsaken. Chad worked tirelessly to make Ayatu feel at home. His modest income secured a spacious dwelling, its smooth walls and glowing panels a luxury by Argobian standards. Yet to Ayatu, it was a cage, its technology alien and cold. One evening, as they sat in the softly lit living space, Ayatu's gaze drifted to a humming device, its blue glow casting eerie shadows. Chad noticed her unease and touched her arm gently. "It's strange, I know," he said, his voice soft. "But you'll find your way here. I'll help you." Ayatu nodded, her fingers tracing the scars on her arms, marks of hunts now distant. "On Krasley, we had the jungle, the suns, the earth. Here, everything's dead." Chad's eyes followed hers, guilt flickering in his gaze. "I can't imagine what you've lost. But you're safe here, Ayatu. This is your home now." Her dark eyes met his, gratitude tangled with doubt. "I want to believe that, Chad. But I don't know if I can ever belong here." He squeezed her arm, his resolve steady. "Then we'll carve a place for you, step by step. I won't let you face this alone." Ayatu offered a faint smile, her scars a silent testament to her strength. "I hope you're right," she murmured. "I'm trying." The confines of Chad's home soon chafed at Ayatu's spirit. The metallic walls and ceaseless hum of machines stifled her, a pale shadow of the jungle's freedom. While Chad was away on a mission, her restlessness boiled over. She resolved to explore Argob's city, determined to find her place in this alien world. Draped in a dark cloak, Ayatu slipped into the streets. The city loomed around her, domed structures glinting under artificial light, vehicles humming through ordered paths, crowds moving with mechanical precision. At first, she tread cautiously, her senses overwhelmed by the clamor of metal and voices. But as she walked, a spark of purpose ignited. She wove through the throngs, her steps gaining confidence, drawn to the market's chaotic pulse. Stalls brimmed with strange wares, circuitry, glowing trinkets, synthetic fabrics. Ayatu paused at one, her fingers brushing a carved metal pendant, its cool surface oddly grounding. She didn't notice the stares at first, the whispers trailing her. Her cloak had slipped, revealing her blue hair and scarred skin, a stark contrast to Argobian pallor. A voice cut through the din, the blue savage. Ayatu froze, heart pounding, as a crowd gathered. Suspicion darkened their faces, their murmurs sharp with hostility. "What's a Kras doing here?" a man sneered. Ayatu's mouth opened, but fear choked her words. She'd hoped to blend in, to claim a sliver of belonging, but she was a stranger, a symbol of the Kras they despised. The crowd pressed closer, their eyes cold with judgment. Panic surged. Ayatu turned and fled, her cloak billowing as she darted through the labyrinthine streets. Her breath came in gasps, the city's weight crushing her hopes. She didn't stop until she reached Chad's door, collapsing inside, her heart heavy with the truth. Argob was no home, and she was still in exile. Chad's defiance had always pushed boundaries, but his recent actions ignited a firestorm on Argob. Smuggling Ayatu, a Kras, to the moon was scandal enough, but his flouting of council protocols, sneaking crassly fruits and, most damningly, a live jungle creature, crossed an unforgivable line. The small, furry animal, meant as a comfort for Ayatu's homesickness, was seized during a routine inspection, branded a threat to Argob's sterile ecosystem. The evidence piled against Chad like kindling. Whispers of his recklessness reached the council, and Hashim, ever vigilant for dissent, seized the opportunity. He summoned an emergency meeting, his authority a storm cloud over Argob's domed city. The council chamber hummed with tension, its obsidian walls reflecting the cold glow of artificial lights. Hashim rose, his towering frame casting a shadow across the assembly, his voice sharp as a blade. "A Kras on Argob?" His pale face twisted with contempt. "Chad has not only harbored this savage but smuggled foreign plants and a live beast into our world. Has he lost all reason?" Chad stood at the chamber's heart, Ayatu beside him. Her blue-gray skin and defiant gaze drew uneasy stares, her presence a living challenge to Argobian purity. Chad's voice rang clear, undaunted. "Ayatu is no savage. She's intelligent, brave, and has shared knowledge of Krasli that has unveiled our true past. She's no threat, she's our kin." Hashim's eyes narrowed, venom in his tone. "Kin? She's a primitive, a relic of the Kras who betrayed us. You think she'll enlighten us? She'll bring chaos, contamination." Chad's fists clenched, his frustration spilling over. "Ayatu is proof of our shared roots. She knows Krasli's rhythms, its truths, things we've forgotten. She's not the enemy, your lies are." The council murmured, their fear of Ayatu palpable. Hashim's gaze slid to her, his words a lash. "What could she teach us? To grovel in mud and pray to suns? We've built a civilization while the Kras wallowed in ruin. You've endangered it all. She's not what you claim." Chad pleaded. "Give her a chance to prove herself." Hashim's smile was cold, mocking. "A chance? Very well. She may stay, under strict conditions." His tone dripped with unspoken threats, a warning of the leash he'd tighten. Hashim's concession was a facade. Behind closed doors, he wove a web of rumors, painting Chad as a reckless traitor who jeopardized Argob's safety for personal whims. His rhetoric poisoned the council, turning allies into skeptics. Weeks later, in a second debate, Hashim struck. "Chad has defied us repeatedly," he declared, his voice commanding the chamber. "He's smuggled contaminants, jeopardized our ecosystem, and mocked our laws. He's unfit to serve as a scientist, or an Argobian." Swayed by Hashim's words, the council voted to strip Chad of his position. His research was confiscated, his reputation shattered. That evening, he returned to Ayatu, his shoulders bowed under defeat. She sat by a window, gazing at Argob's gray expanse, her expression heavy with worry. "They've taken it all," Chad said, his voice hollow. Ayatu rose, her hand resting on his shoulder, steady and warm. "Not all," she said softly. "We have each other." Chad's weak smile betrayed his pain. "I wanted to make this world bearable for you," he admitted, voice breaking. The creature, the fruits. I thought they'd help. Ayatu's dark eyes softened with gratitude. You gave me a home when I had none. That's more than I could have asked. Her words were a balm, but the sting of his fall lingered, a reminder of the cost of their defiance. Months later, Ayatu gave birth to twins, Kale and Lyra, a miracle that shook Argob's foundations. Kale bore Argobian pale skin and wide black eyes, yet a fine layer of light blue fur covered him, a mark of his crass heritage. Lyra's blue-gray skin shimmered with patches of fur, her expressive eyes echoing Ayatu's. They were a bridge between worlds, beautiful and unprecedented. To many Argobians, the twins were an affront, a contamination of their lineage. Hashem seized the moment, his voice thundering in the council. This is the fruit of Chad's folly. These hybrids threaten our society's purity. We must act. Debates raged, some pleading mercy, others demanding exile, or worse. Whispers of sterilization or imprisonment crept through the chamber, a chilling echo of Hashem's growing power. Late at night, as Kale and Lyra slept in their crib, Chad and Ayatu huddled in their quarters, their voices low. We can't stay, Chad said, his tone resolute. Hashem will destroy us. And the twins? Ayatu nodded, her expression grim. Crassly's no safer. My people would reject them as yours do. Where can we go? Chad's hand covered hers, his gaze steady. The outer colonies. I've heard of worlds beyond Argob's reach, planets where we could start anew. Ayatu's eyes gleamed with resolve. For Kale and Lyra, we'll find them. Their plan took shape in whispers, each step fraught with peril. They'd need a ship, supplies, and secrecy to evade Hashem's spies. The outer colonies were a rumor, a fragile hope, but for their children, they'd risk everything to forge a future free of fear. Life on Argob was a crucible, but for Chad, Ayatu, and their twins, it had become a crucible of scorn. Stripped of his scientific rank, Chad toiled in the shadows of Argob's domed cities, maintaining machines alongside drones. His name, once synonymous with discovery, was now a byword for disgrace, whispered with contempt. Ayatu, marked by her Crassian otherness, faced unrelenting hostility. Her blue-gray skin and towering frame drew suspicion at every turn, her presence a stain on Argob's sterile order. Even cloaked to hide her scars and hair, she felt the weight of judgmental stares, their whispers sharp as knives, savage. Outsider. The city's artificial hum seemed to mock her isolation, a relentless echo of her exile from Crassly's jungles. For Kale and Lyra, the twins, the world was crueler still. Their hybrid forms, Kale's pale, fur-dappled body and Argobian eyes, Lyra's blue-gray skin with patches of fur and Crassly expressiveness, were deemed abominations. To Argobian children, they were monsters, shunned or taunted, their differences a barrier no kindness could breach. Yet Kale and Lyra clung to each other, their bond a fortress against rejection. Ayatu tried to shield them, weaving tales of Crassly's jungles to soothe their pain, but her own struggles bled through. Argob's gray skies and cold metal floors choked her spirit, a pale shadow of her vibrant homeland. The twins' suffering deepened her longing, and Chad saw the cracks forming in her resilience, her eyes hollow with grief. Despite the hostility, Chad and Ayatu poured love into their children, crafting a fragile haven within their home. They shared stories, songs, and held tight to hope, but the weight of Argob's rejection pressed ever closer, threatening to shatter their sanctuary. The twins' rapid growth stunned Chad. Unlike Argobian infants, who crawled at 6 months, Kale and Lyra walked and spoke simple sentences within weeks. Their bright eyes devoured their surroundings, their movements carried a Crassian agility that set them apart. To Chad, accustomed to Argobian's slow development, their vitality was both wondrous and alienating. Ayatu, however, saw her people's traits reflected in their children. It's normal for Crass, she said one evening, cradling Lyra as Kale nestled close. Twins are sacred, and they grow fast to survive the jungle. They're like us. Chad watched, marveling at their bond with Ayatu. They clung to her, seeking comfort in a Crassian mother's warmth, a stark contrast to Argobian detachment. "They're so close to you," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "Argobians, we don't have this." Ayatu's dark eyes softened. "They need you, too, Chad. You're their father. Your strength is theirs." Chad nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. His love felt insufficient against the mounting threats, their family's survival a fragile thread in a hostile tapestry. Amid the storm of rejection, Kubel remained their anchor. A scientist with a passion for Krasley, he saw Ayatu and the twins as a bridge to understanding, not a curse. His visits brought gifts, carved toys, Krasley texts, and rare fruits, that lit up Kale and Lyra's faces. One evening, Kubel arrived with a satchel of supplies, dried herbs, berries, and a small wooden figurine etched with Krasley's jungle motifs. Ayatu lifted it, her fingers tracing its familiar lines. "Where did you find this?" she asked, voice thick with gratitude. Kubel grinned. "Krasley missions have their perks. Thought it'd remind you of home." Ayatu's eyes glistened. "You've done so much, Kubel. We're in your debt." "No debt," Kubel said firmly. "I believe in you and Chad. The council's blind, they can't see your family for what it is, proof we're not so different." Chad clasped Kubel's shoulder. "You're risking everything for us." "If it comes to that, I'll stand with you," Kubel vowed. Kubel's support was a lifeline, but even his loyalty couldn't shield them from the gathering storm. News of the twins' birth sent shockwaves through the council, their hybridity a scandal. Argobian biology, shaped by centuries of limp serum, rarely produced twins, making Kale and Lyra's existence a biological impossibility to many. To them, it was a violation of nature itself. Hashim, seizing the moment, called an emergency session. "This is no miracle," he declared, his voice a lash. "It's an abomination, a contamination of our lineage. These creatures are not Argobian and never will be." The council's murmurs grew heated, their horror palpable. Hashim's words ignited fear. "This union defies our laws, our very nature. We must protect Argob from such corruption." The council's decree was swift and merciless. Unions between Kras and Argob were criminalized, punishable by exile or worse. Kale and Lyra were branded Kras, denied citizenship, and stripped of all rights. The ruling wasn't just legal, it was a public shunning, a declaration that their family was unwelcome. For Chad and Ayatu, the message was clear: Argob was no longer safe. The troubles they faced were only the beginning of a desperate fight for survival. The council's rejection of his family shattered Chad's trust. Once, he revered their wisdom, believing they safeguarded Argob's survival on its barren moon. Now, stripped of his role and cast into obscurity, he saw their truth, a regime fueled by fear, wielding control with a vengeful fist. As an outcast, Chad's eyes opened to what he'd once ignored. In maintenance tunnels, he caught snatches of council whispers, cryptic talk of a Krasley threat, and chilling mentions of eradication. Hashim and his allies no longer spoke of the Kras as kin or primitives but as enemies to be crushed. One evening, while repairing a dome's conduits, Chad overheard two workers near a service hatch. "Hashim's pushing for military action," one muttered. "Says it's inevitable." "The Kras don't even know we're here," the other countered, uneasy. "Why strike?" "It's preemptive," the first said. "Hashim calls it survival." Chad's gut twisted. The council's plans weren't just harsh. They were genocidal. That night, Chad returned home, his unease a heavy shroud. Ayatu sat cross-legged on the floor, Kale and Lyra curled beside her, their soft breaths a contrast to the tension in her face. The dim glow of a lamp traced lines of exhaustion etched into her features. "You're late," she said, her voice gentle but probing. "Work dragged on," Chad mumbled, sinking into a chair. Ayatu's sharp eyes studied him. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then leaned forward, voice low. "I overheard workers talking. Hashem's planning a preemptive strike against Krasley. They're framing it as survival, but it's fear, pure fear." Ayatu's gaze darkened, her hand brushing Kale's hair protectively. "Against my people?" Chad nodded grimly. "Your kin don't even know Argob exists. This isn't defense, it's slaughter." Ayatu's eyes drifted to the twins, her voice soft but heavy. "They'll never accept us, Chad. Not you, not me, not them." She nodded at Kale and Lyra. "But this is bigger than us now." "I know," Chad said, his weariness palpable. "We're barely surviving as it is." "It's not just about survival," Ayata countered, her tone resolute. "If the council attacks Krasley, my people, jungle dwellers, innocent, won't stand a chance. And what then for Kale and Lyra? They're already outcasts. How long before Hashem brands them threats, too?" Her words struck like a spark. Chad had spent years observing, enduring, but passivity was no longer an option. "We need proof," he said, his mind racing. "Something undeniable to expose Hashem's plans to the Argobians." "It'll be dangerous," Ayata warned, her eyes fierce. "They'll hunt us, and the twins." Chad took her hand, his grip steady. "We'll protect them. Whatever it takes." Ayatu's expression softened, a flicker of hope in her gaze. "Together," she said. The next day, Kubel arrived, his usual calm frayed by urgency. He paced their cramped quarters, his voice low. "Hashem's accelerating plans for Krasley. He's selling a military strike as a safeguard, a preemptive purge." Ayatu crossed her arms, her gaze piercing. "And you believe him?" Kubel stopped, meeting her eyes. "He's a fool. The Kras aren't a threat, never were. This is about power." Hashem stoking fear to tighten his grip. Chad's jaw tightened. "We need evidence to stop him, something to sway the public." "That's a deadly game," Kubel cautioned. "Hashem's spies are everywhere. One misstep." "We have no choice," Ayata cut in, her voice unwavering. "If we don't act, my people die. Then our children. You've seen how they treat Kale and Lyra, do you think they'll spare them?" Kubel exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "You're right. I'm in. But we need to be clever. Hard proof, documents, recordings, something the council can't deny." Chad clasped Kubel's shoulder, gratitude in his tired eyes. "Thank you, my friend. We need you." Kubel's nod was firm, resolve hardening his features. "Let's do this." As Chad, Ayatu, and Kubel plotted in whispers, Argob stood at a precipice. Hashem's rhetoric fanned the flames of war, threatening not just Krasley but Argob's own soul. Dissent simmered beneath the surface, a quiet rebellion waiting for a spark. For Chad and Ayatu, the stakes were existential. Their love, their twins, and the fate of two worlds hung in a delicate balance. They could no longer stand by, they had to act, no matter the cost. The hidden chamber pulsed with the low hum of machinery, its shadows cloaking the underground's members. Chad sat rigid at the table's center, his heart racing under the weight of their gazes. Their wide, black eyes gleamed in the dim light, unreadable, curiosity, suspicion, or scorn. Neri, the underground's leader, stood at the table's head, her pale frame commanding despite her calm demeanor. "You've taken a grave risk coming here," she said, her voice steady but sharp. "Why now, Chad? Why seek us after years of silence?" Chad's fingers gripped the chair, his mind racing for the right words. A misstep could doom not just him but Ayatu and their twins. He drew a breath, his voice firm. The Council's planning war, weapons, ships, and assault on Krasley. The Krass won't survive it. It'll be genocide. A murmur rippled through the group, but Neri's gaze remained piercing. And why should we trust you? Before Chad could respond, a voice cut through the tension. Because I do. Kubel stepped from the shadows, his expression resolute. Chad's shoulders eased, relief flooding him. Kubel faced the room, undaunted. I've known Chad for years. He's bold, sometimes reckless, but honest. If he warns of an attack, it's real. Neri's eyes flicked to Kubel, her face unyielding. Trust isn't enough. Taking him in risks us all. One mistake could unravel everything. Kubel stepped closer, his voice unwavering. Doing nothing risks more. Chad knows the Council's inner workings. We need him to stop this war. Silence hung heavy. Neri studied Chad, then extended her hand. Welcome to the underground, she said, her tone a mix of caution and resolve. The underground was a revelation, a clandestine network thriving in Argob's underbelly. Abandoned labs and maintenance tunnels, masked by machinery's drone, sheltered their work. Chad marveled at their ingenuity, a stark contrast to the Council's sterile control. Neri, a former economist, had once navigated Argob's elite circles. Her insight exposed the Council's lies. Argob teetered on collapse, its resources dwindling, its people subdued by fear. War isn't about Krasley, she told Chad in a secluded tunnel, her voice low. It's a distraction. The Council needs an enemy to justify control. Krasley's destruction erases our past, nothing more. Chad's dread deepened. The Council's plan wasn't folly, it was a calculated purge, threatening not just Krasley but Argob's soul. As Chad integrated into the underground, he met its diverse members, each driven by defiance. Kubel, his steadfast ally, brought Krasley's truths. Evidence that the betrayal was a myth born of a cataclysmic war, not Krass treachery. 10,000 years of lies, Kubel said in their makeshift lab, his voice bitter. The Krass are victims, not villains. Gizzo, a financier, funded the resistance, his wealth a silent weapon against the Council. Time's our enemy, he warned during a strategy session, his sharp eyes scanning maps. Hashem's moving fast. We need to strike before he does. Feyre, a defector from the weapons program, offered technical expertise, her hands steady as she dissected Council drones. Valen, a theorist with a knack for uncovering secrets, grinned wryly. They call me mad, but I've outsmarted Hashem's spies before. We'll find his weaknesses. Together, they were a fragile but fierce coalition, their shared purpose a spark in Argob's darkness. The underground rekindled Chad's fire. No longer just surviving, he was resisting, his purpose entwined with Ayatu's and their twins. Returning home one night, he found Ayatu waiting, her face etched with worry. Kale and Lyra played nearby, their laughter a fleeting shield against fear. How was it? Ayatu asked, her voice soft but searching. Real, Chad said, sinking beside her. They're organized, driven. But time's short, Hashem's plans are advancing. Ayatu's gaze drifted to the twins, her resolve hardening. Then we outpace him. For them. For Krasley. Chad reached for her hand, his grip a vow. I won't let him touch you or them. Ayatu leaned closer, her voice steady despite the storm ahead. We're in this together, Chad. Always. Their bond, forged in exile, burned brighter, a beacon for the fight to come. The screen's cold glow cast shadows across Chad's face as he sat rigid, arms crossed, in their cramped quarters. Kale and Lyra slept nearby, their soft breaths a fragile counterpoint to the propaganda blaring from the screen. Ayatu tidied their meager belongings, but Chad's eyes were locked on the broadcast, a venomous stream of council lies. The narrator's voice dripped with authority, designed to sow fear and obedience. Grainy footage of Krasley's jungles flickered, tangled vines, shadowed creatures, and blurred Krass hunters wielding spears. The Krass, the voice intoned, savages wallowing in a ruined world, worshipping suns and scavenging relics. They are chaos incarnate, a threat to our order. The scene shifted to Argobian soldiers drilling in pristine domes, their rifles gleaming. Only the Council's wisdom protects us from their barbarity. We must stand vigilant. Hashem appeared, his pale face grave. The Krass are a warning of anarchy. We act for Argob's survival. Chad's fists clenched as staged reenactments followed, Krass tribes attacking Argobians in fabricated assaults, their faces twisted into monstrous snarls. The lies were blatant, priming Argob for war against a people who didn't know they existed. Ayatu approached, sensing his fury. "What is it?" she asked, her voice a quiet anchor. Chad jabbed a hand at the screen, his voice raw. "Propaganda. They're demonizing your people to justify genocide." Ayatu's gaze hardened as she watched, her jaw tight. "They know nothing of us. Fear drives them to madness." Chad nodded, his mind churning. "They manufacture fear, then pose as saviors. It's vile." Ayatu's hand rested on his shoulder, steadying him. "Then we stop them," she said, her tone resolute. "We can't let these lies win." Chad's work with the underground revealed the Council's suffocating grip. Hashem's influence saturated every facet of Argob, military drills, media broadcasts, and laws that branded Krasley a scourge. Each public address reinforced the narrative: the Krass were the enemy, and only the Council could save Argob. The underground's resistance grew perilous. Meetings huddled in forsaken tunnels, their whispers drowned by machinery's hum, but every stolen file risked exposure. Betrayal meant not exile but execution. Chad felt the Council's spies closing in, their presence a shadow over every move. One night, returning from a covert meeting, he found Ayatu by the window, her eyes scanning the dark street. "They're watching us," she whispered, her voice taut. Chad froze. "Who?" "A stranger," she said, stepping closer. "Across the street, pretending to tinker with a panel. They kept staring at our door." Chad glanced outside, the street now empty. "We'll be more careful," he said, his voice firm but laced with doubt. Ayatu gripped his arm, her eyes fierce with fear. "I'm scared, Chad. For Kale, Lyra, for us. If they know what you're doing." "They won't," he vowed, though uncertainty gnawed at him. "But we can't stop, Ayatu. If we do, Krasley burns, and we're next." Ayatu nodded, her resolve reluctant but unbroken. "Promise you'll stay safe." "I promise," Chad said, the weight of his words a stone on his chest. The underground's efforts intensified, each day a race against Hashem's war machine. Chad smuggled files from secure archives, their contents chilling, blueprints for weapons of annihilation, not defense. Fusion warheads, biodispersal units, tools to eradicate Krasley's people and plunder its resources. The Council's plan wasn't war, it was extermination. In a hidden chamber, Chad presented his findings to Neri and the underground. "The Krass have no defenses," he urged, his voice sharp with urgency. "If we warn them, give them time to prepare, it could save them." Neri's eyes narrowed, her arms crossed. "It's a deadly gamble. If the Council traces the message, we're finished." "I know," Chad said. "But silence means their death, and ours next. Hashem won't stop at Krasley." The room stilled, the weight of his words sinking in. Neri's voice cut the silence. "We need a plan, secure, untraceable. A warning to Krasley without exposing us." "I'll find a way," Chad vowed, determination burning through his fear. That night, Chad returned home to find Ayatu cradling Lyra, Kale playing quietly nearby. The air was thick with unspoken dread. "We need to leave," Ayatu said, her voice trembling yet firm. "Not soon, now." Chad's heart sank, but he nodded. "I know. But there's one last thing I must do." Ayatu's eyes narrowed, Lyra stirring in her arms. "What?" He hesitated, then spoke, his voice low but resolute. "I'm working with the underground to warn Krasley. If we can get a message to your people, they might stand a chance. But it's risky, Hashem's spies are closing in." Ayatu's face tightened, fear warring with pride. "You're risking everything. For you, for the twins, for Krasley," Chad said, his hand finding hers. "I can't let Hashem destroy it all." Ayatu's gaze softened, but her voice held steel. "Then do it fast. We'll be ready to run, together." Their eyes locked, a shared vow against the gathering storm. Time was their enemy, but their resolve burned brighter, a fragile hope for a world worth saving. Tension choked the air in their dim quarters, the flickering lamp casting jagged shadows across Chad and Ayatu's strained faces. Kale and Lyra's soft laughter from the corner, where they played with carved toys, felt like a fragile echo of innocence. Ayatu's voice, steady but weary, broke the silence. "The Science Academy's offer is a chance, Chad," she said, her dark eyes pleading. "Stability, food, clothes, safety for the twins. A life where we're not scraping by." Chad paced, his movements sharp, like a beast caged. "At what cost?" he snapped, his voice raw. "They don't see you as a person, Ayatu. You're a specimen to them, a Kras to dissect." Ayatu stepped closer, her hand gentle on his arm, anchoring his fury. "I know the risks," she said, firm yet soft. "But we're drowning here. The way they shun us, the twins. If I can prove my worth, show I'm more than their savage, it could open a door." Chad's black eyes burned into hers, his jaw tight. "Prove yourself. They'll never respect you. This is control, not opportunity. They'll use you until there's nothing left." Ayatu held his gaze, unyielding. "Maybe. But Kale and Lyra deserve better than this half-life. If there's a chance, I have to take it, for them." Chad's shoulders sagged, defeat warring with fear. He turned away, staring at the cracked walls. "Promise me," he said, voice heavy, "if they go too far, if it feels wrong, you'll walk away. No matter what they dangle." Ayatu's hand found his shoulder, her touch a vow. "I promise," she said, though doubt gnawed at her. She glanced at the twins, their joy a beacon. "I'll do anything for our family." Chad faced her, vulnerability cracking his resolve. "I can't lose you," he murmured. "You won't," Ayatu said, her voice fierce despite the unease in her chest. At first, the Science Academy seemed a lifeline. Ayatu's modest salary eased their burdens, and the scientists' interest in her crass physiology, dense muscles, light blue fur, jungle-honed immunity, felt like validation. "Remarkable," a researcher muttered as Ayatu lifted a steel beam effortlessly, her strength dwarfing Argobian norms. "Her musculature's extraordinary. Her immune system's a marvel," another added, scribbling furiously. "Resistant to pathogens that would fell us. Her adaptations could revolutionize our biology." Ayatu initially took pride in their awe, each test a chance to prove her value. But pride curdled as weeks passed. The experiments grew invasive, probing not her strengths but her breaking points. One day, she lay strapped to a metal table, its cold surface biting her skin. Harsh lights glared, and alien machines hummed ominously. Dr. Zenar, the lead scientist, loomed nearby, his pale face a mask of detachment. "Begin the scan," he ordered, voice clinical. A searing beam raked her body, heat blistering her skin. Ayatu tensed against the restraints, pain flaring. "What is this?" she demanded, voice sharp. "It's burning me." Zenar's eyes flicked to his tablet. "Pain is within parameters. Increase intensity by 20%. Fury surged. "Stop!" Ayatu roared, her voice echoing. "This is torture." Zenar met her gaze, his black eyes void of warmth. "You consented, Ayatu. If you can't endure, perhaps your strength is overstated." His words stung, but they also ignited defiance. "This isn't science," she spat, straining against the straps. "It's cruelty." Zenar's expression didn't shift. "We push limits here. Proceed." The tests escalated, chemical injections, extreme temperatures, sensory assaults with blinding lights and deafening sounds. Each session chipped at Ayatu's dignity, her body a battleground for their curiosity. Doubt crept in, had she traded one exile for another? Ayatu returned home each night bruised and hollow, her silence louder than words. Chad saw the change, the slump of her shoulders, the haunted flicker in her eyes she tried to mask. "How was it?" he asked one evening, his voice soft but laced with dread. Ayatu's gaze dropped, her hands twisting. "Fine," she lied, her tone brittle. Chad closed the distance, his hands gentle on her arms. "Ayatu, please. What are they doing?" Her eyes met his, anger and despair spilling over. "They're not studying me," she whispered, voice trembling. "They're breaking me, testing how much I can take before I shatter." Chad's fists clenched, his voice a growl. "You're done. You're not going back." "I can't quit," Ayatu said, desperation creeping in. "If I stop, we lose everything, the twins' future." "We'll find another way," Chad cut in, his voice rising. "I won't let them destroy you for their twisted science." Ayatu's hand pressed against his chest, her resolve steadying. "I promise to protect our family. If this buys Kale and Lyra a chance, I'll bear it." Chad's heart cracked at her determination, her sacrifice a weight he couldn't lift. "I can't lose you," he said, voice breaking. "You won't," Ayatu replied, but the words felt fragile, a hope she clung to against the growing darkness. The hum of Argob's machinery seeped into their dim quarters, a relentless reminder of their exile. Ayatu stumbled through the door, her body bruised from the Science Academy's relentless tests. She collapsed into a chair, hands trembling as she buried her face in them. "I can't do it anymore," she whispered, voice hollow with defeat. Chad, reading to Kale and Lyra, rushed to her side, his pale hands gentle on her shoulders. "What happened?" he asked, dread tightening his voice. "Did they hurt you?" Ayatu shook her head, tears welling in her dark eyes. "It's not just pain, Chad. It's their eyes, like I'm nothing, less than nothing." Chad knelt, his black eyes soft with empathy. "You're everything, Ayatu," he said, voice steady. "Brave, strong, you don't need their approval." Her tears broke free, and she leaned into his embrace, trembling under the weight of her despair. Kale and Lyra toddled over, their small arms wrapping around her legs. Their touch drew a faint smile from Ayatu, but her heart remained heavy. The next morning, a sharp knock shattered their fragile peace. A messenger, rigid in council garb, held a summons. "The council requests Ayatu's presence," he intoned. Ayatu and Chad exchanged wary glances. The council's call promised nothing but trouble. The council chamber loomed, its obsidian walls aglow with cold light. Ayatu stood tall before the Argobian leaders, her shadow defiant against their pristine forms. Hashem, his pale face a mask, fixed her with unblinking eyes. "We've followed your progress," Hashem began, his voice smooth as ice. "Your resignation is regrettable, but we see another role for you." Ayatu's brow furrowed, unease prickling her skin. Hashem leaned forward, a predator's glint in his gaze. Laborers are needed for tasks beneath Argobians. Your crass strength makes you ideal for such work. Her stomach twisted. You mean slavery? Hashem's lips curled, amused. Slavery? No, integration. A trial, with you as our first subject. Rage surged, but Ayata thought of Chad, Kale, Lyra, their fragile survival. Defiance could cost them everything. Through gritted teeth, she forced the words. I'll do it. Hashem's smile widened, a flicker of triumph. You begin tomorrow. Ayatu's new role was a descent into humiliation. In the domed city's bowels, she toiled amid waste and rusted machinery, the air thick with decay. Mechanical drones whirred past, ignoring her as if she were invisible. The work was backbreaking, hauling debris, scrubbing conduits, each task a reminder of her degradation. Each evening, she returned home coated in grime, her spirit bruised. Chad met her at the door, his face a storm of worry and fury. Why didn't you tell me? He demanded, voice taut. Ayata sagged, exhaustion dulling her eyes. What choice was there? They've stripped us bare. If I refuse, we lose it all. Chad cupped her face, his touch fierce yet tender. We'll find another way. I won't let you suffer like this. Her hand covered his, resolve flickering. I'll endure, for you, for the twins. But this isn't the end. They won't break me. While Ayatu bore the council's yoke, Chad's work with the underground deepened. The movement swelled, drawing Argobians disillusioned by Hashem's lies. In hidden tunnels, they forged a network of defiance, exposing the council's corruption through stolen files and whispered truths. Their boldest venture was smuggling crassly goods, fruits, artifacts, past council enforcers. Chad had doubted the plan, fearing exposure, but Kubal's passion swayed him. These goods are more than profit, Kubel said in a shadowed chamber, his voice fervent. A crassly fruit, a carved relic, they're proof of a world beyond the council's grip. They give people hope. Chad saw the truth in Kubal's words. The black market thrived, each sale funding the underground's fight. A bitten fruit, a held artifact, was a quiet rebellion, eroding Hashem's control. But danger loomed. Enforcers tightened their patrols, and whispers of crackdowns grew. This is a deadly game, Chad warned Kubel one night, their breath visible in the tunnel's chill. Kubal's wry smile held defiance. We're all in too deep, Chad. The only question is if we'll finish what we started. Their resolve burned, a spark against the gathering storm, but time was slipping through their The council chamber's sterile glow bathed the circular room, its obsidian walls amplifying the chill of authority. Hashem presided at the table's head, his pale face a mask of contempt as he addressed Argob's elite. Ayatu's presence taints our society, he declared, voice sharp as a blade. A crass relic, she erodes our purity with every breath. Murmurs of assent echoed, but Mekir, head of research, leaned forward, his black eyes gleaming with clinical interest. Her physiology is unmatched, robust immunity, superior strength. Studying her could advance our genome. Hashem's gaze darkened. Valuable, yes, but a threat. Her existence, and her hybrids, stirs unrest. If we can't erase her, we'll bind her. Neezer, the economist, offered a sly smile. Destabilize her. Shift her roles monthly, labor, service, research, under the guise of adaptability. She'll stay isolated, dependent, and watched. Hashem's cruel smile spread. Perfect. Let her struggle, let her break. She'll serve as a lesson, a crass is nothing but a tool. The council's nod sealed Ayatu's fate, their unity a cold machine of control. The council's decree was broadcast at dawn, Ayato would rotate employers monthly to assess her adaptability. The lie was transparent, a calculated campaign to crush her spirit. Her life became a treadmill of upheaval, each shift designed to isolate and degrade her. The council's spies logged every move, reducing her to data points in their relentless surveillance. Ayato saw through the facade but had no choice. Defiance risked Kale, Lyra, and Chad, their fragile survival hung by a thread. Her first assignment plunged her into a factory's acrid haze, where machines roared and fumes stung her lungs. She hauled jagged metal, her hands blistering under a supervisor's sneers. "Faster, Crass," he barked, his voice dripping with scorn. "Strength's no use if you're this slow." Ayato bit back her rage, her focus on Kale and Lyra's faces stealing her resolve. The next month, she toiled in domed farms, bending under artificial lights to tend engineered crops. Her back ached, her muscles burned, but the harvest, stripped of Crassley's vibrancy, was forbidden to her. "You're butchering it," a worker sneered. "A jungle beast can't grasp our science." Ayato swallowed the insult, her hands steady as she worked, her mind on her children. Then came service in elite homes, their sterile opulence a mockery of her cramped quarters. Homeowners treated her like a spectacle, their cruelty veiled in smiles. "Missed a spot," a woman taunted, pointing to a gleaming floor. "Is incompetence a crass trait?" Ayato's nails bit her palms, but she scrubbed in silence, her dignity battered but unbroken. Every action was scrutinized, showering deemed wasteful, not showering proof of her primitiveness. She was trapped in their game, unable to win. The medical clinic was where Nadir assigned Ayato to clean and organize. Ayato found the work bearable, until Dr. Fakir, a gaunt Argobian with a predator's gaze, revealed his intent. "Your physiology is a resource," he said on her first day, voice devoid of warmth. "You'll assist our research." Ayato's unease grew as Fakir's eyes lingered, dissecting her. One afternoon, he summoned her to an examination room, its cold table gleaming under harsh lights. "Lie down," he ordered. Her instincts screamed, but she complied, wary. "What's this?" she asked, voice edged with defiance. "A routine procedure," Fakir said, his tone clipped. A searing pain ripped through her side, and Ayata gasped, gripping the table. "What are you doing?" she cried, panic rising. "Harvesting eggs," Fakir replied, not looking up. "A valuable asset. You'll produce more." Shock and rage flooded her, tears streaming. "You can't," she whispered, voice breaking. Fakir's gaze was ice. "You agreed to contribute. This is for Argob's future." Ayato's body shook with violation, her autonomy stolen. She endured in silence, refusing to let Fakir see her shatter, but the wound to her spirit cut deep. The council's machine had caged Ayato, stripping her of stability and dignity. Each role, factory, farm, service, clinic, was a lash, reminding her of her place as an outsider. She was exhausted, isolated, her body and soul battered. Yet a spark burned within. Memories of Kale's laughter, Lyra's embrace, and Chad's love anchored her. The council could chain her body, but her defiance smoldered, a quiet vow that one day, she'd break free, for her family, for herself, for a world beyond their cruelty. Ayato's new assignment seemed a reprieve, no factories, no fields, just an Argobian elite sterile home. But the task childcare in carried its own venom. Vayan, an 8-year-old with pale skin, radiated the arrogance of privilege. His sharp gaze sized her up the moment she entered, his disdain palpable. "You're the Crass," he said, voice dripping with contempt. Ayato forced a gentle smile, kneeling to his level. "I'm Ayato. I'll care for you today." Vayan's smirk was cold. "You're not like us. Mother says you're a jungle beast." I'm from Krasley, she replied softly, undeterred. It's different, but beautiful. He scoffed, arms crossed. You're here to obey me, right? Vayen's defiance tested her patience. He rejected her meals, hurled toys, and spilled juice on the gleaming floor, grinning as she cleaned. Missed a spot, he taunted, echoing Argobian sneers. Ayatu's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent, her focus on endurance. Retaliation would only cost her family. The day's cruelty peaked in the playroom. As Ayatu tidied, a sharp tug jolted her. Scissors snipped, and a lock of her dark hair fell. She spun to find Vayen brandishing the severed strand, his grin triumphant. Got you, he crowed, waving it like a prize. Ayatu's hand touched the jagged gap, shock and humiliation surging. Her hair, a tie to Krasley's pride, was violated. Vayen, she said, voice low but steady, why? He shrugged, unrepentant. It's just hair. You're not like us, who cares? Her chest burned with rage, but she swallowed it. She wanted to demand respect, to make him see her humanity, but his smirk told her it was futile. To him, she was nothing, a crass servant, unworthy of dignity. Kneeling, she met his eyes, voice firm. Cutting someone's hair without permission is wrong. Apologize. Vayen rolled his eyes. Why? You can't do anything. The truth stung. In this house, in Argob, she was powerless, her worth dictated by those who despised her. That evening, Ayatu trudged home, her scarf hiding the uneven hack of her hair. Her face was pale, her movements mechanical, etched with exhaustion and shame. Chad, waiting in their cramped quarters, saw her distress instantly. Ayatu, he said, crossing to her, concern sharpening his voice. What's wrong? She brushed past, forcing a faint smile. Just tired, she murmured, avoiding his gaze. Chad caught her arm gently, his black eyes searching. You're not fine. Tell me. I'm fine, she insisted, her hand on his, voice sharper than intended. I need rest, that's all. Chad's brow furrowed, but he relented, sensing her walls. He saw her slumped shoulders, the weight she carried, but her silence held firm. Ayatu turned away, guilt gnawing. She hid the stolen eggs, the clinic's violation, and now Vayen's cruelty. She bore it alone, shielding Chad from her pain, unwilling to share his helplessness. Ayatu's spirit refused to break. Each dawn, she rose, kissed Kale and Lyra, and faced a world bent on crushing her. She endured taunts, labor, and indignity for her family's survival, her bravery a quiet fire. To the twins, she wove tales of hope, masking the scars, physical and unseen, that marked her. But the toll was mounting. Her body weakened, drained by months of exploitation. Her smiles grew brittle, her strength a finite well. One night, tucking the twins into bed, Lyra's wide eyes met hers. Mother, why are you always sad? She asked, voice soft with worry. Ayatu froze, her breath catching. She forced a smile, stroking Lyra's blue-gray hair. I'm not sad, my star. Just tired. Kale frowned, unconvinced. You're always tired. Why won't they let you rest? Her heart fractured, but her smile held. Because I'm strong, she said, cupping Kale's cheek. And you too make me stronger. Kissing their foreheads, she left the room, the truth heavy, her strength was waning, and time was her enemy. The council chamber's metallic walls gleamed under cold lights, amplifying the tension among Argob's elite. Hashem leaned back, his sharp eyes glinting with venom as he addressed his advisors. Ayatu endures, he hissed, voice low and cutting. Her defiance mocks our authority. A crass, unbroken, threatens our control. An advisor shifted uneasily. She's one woman, Hashem. Her suffering is recorded. How much more can she withstand? Hashem's cruel smile spread. Her strength is the danger. She's a symbol, proof our grip can falter. Beyond that, she's a resource, a key to Krasley's wealth. Our experiments aren't just science, they're power. We'll break her not with force but with her own existence. He flicked a wrist, and an aide handed him a dossier. Her next employer, Fidbar, is perfect, arrogant, insecure, easily manipulated. He'll unravel her without knowing he's our tool. The advisors nodded, their silence a seal on Ayatu's next ordeal. Ayatu's new assignment led to Argob's elite district, where sleek towers and manicured gardens mocked the city's underbelly. Fidbar's home was a shrine to wealth, polished floors, abstract sculptures, air heavy with synthetic perfumes. Fidbar greeted her, his wiry frame and tailored attire exuding privilege. His smirk danced between charm and menace. "You're Ayatu," he said, voice light. "Come in." Ayatu stepped inside, cautious but hopeful. Fidbar's demeanor seemed kinder than past employers. He didn't bark orders, instead watching her with curiosity. "You're tougher than anyone I know," he said on her first day, leaning against a doorway as she dusted. "Most would have broken under your burdens." Ayatu's guard stayed up, but his words stirred a flicker of warmth. Kindness from Argobians was a rare coin, often counterfeit. Then, Fidbar offered a Krasley fruit, lush, smuggled, a status symbol among the elite. "A taste of home," he said, holding it out. She hesitated, then took it, murmuring, "Thank you." The gesture felt generous, but her instincts whispered caution. Fidbar's curiosity soon filled their days. "Tell me about Krasley's jungles," he urged one evening, eyes bright. "The wildlife, your people." Wary, Ayata shared fragments, vibrant vines, crass rituals, the pulse of her lost home. Fidbar listened, rapt, but his interest darkened. His gaze lingered, his questions probing. "You're beautiful," he said one day, voice too smooth. "Raw, untamed, not like Argob women." Ayatu's skin prickled. She deflected, voice steady. "I'd rather talk about my children. Kale and Lyra love Krasley's stories." Fidbar's smirk faltered, his tone tightening. "Your husband and children?" "Yes," she said firmly. "They're my world." His nod was curt, eyes clouding with something unreadable. "Of course," he muttered, jaw clenched. Fidbar's behavior grew possessive, his compliments barbed, his presence invasive. One evening, as Ayata cleaned his study, he loomed closer, voice low. "Why waste your strength on this life?" he said, eyes glinting. "You deserve better than that weakling Chad. Someone who sees you." Ayata froze, her body taut. "My family is enough," she said, voice like steel. "I love my husband and children. Don't speak of this again." Her rejection, calm but resolute, struck Fidbar like a slap. His arrogance recoiled, unable to fathom refusal from a Kras. "You reject me?" he spat, voice rising. "A Kras, ungrateful for my attention?" Ayata stepped back, eyes unwavering. "I owe you nothing, Fidbar. Respect my family, or we have nothing to say." Fidbar's face twisted with rage. Without a word, he stormed out, the door slamming like a gunshot. Ayatu didn't know her defiance played into Hashem's hands. In a private chamber, Fidbar paced before the council leader, his pride wounded. "She humiliated me," he snarled. "That Kras thinks she's above me." Hashem's smile was ice. "Then we'll remind her of her place." Fidbar's obsession didn't wane, it escalated. The next day, he confronted Chad as he walked with Kale and Lyra, their arms full of supplies. Fidbar approached with a casual stride, his smirk disarming but hollow. "You're Chad," he said, voice light. "Ayatu's spoken of you." Chad stopped, instincts sharp, positioning himself between Fidbar and the twins. "And you are?" "Fidbar," he replied, offering a hand, his charm a thin veneer. "Ayatu worked for me. She's remarkable." Chad ignored the hand, eyes narrowing. "What do you want?" Fidbar's chuckle was forced. "Just curious about the man who's won Ayatu's loyalty." "You must be special." The condescension grated. Chad's voice was ice. "Ayatu's my wife, the mother of my children." "Say what you mean." Fidbar's mask slipped, his sneer bared. "You don't deserve her. She's wasted on you, on this pathetic life. Do you even know her worth?" Chad's fists tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "I know she needs love, respect, not wealth or power. She has that with us. Whatever you're after, it ends now." Fidbar stepped closer, venom in his tone. "You're nothing, Chad. A weakling. She deserves more than you'll ever offer." Chad didn't flinch. "The only weakling is the man who can't hear no. Ayatu doesn't want you. Leave my family alone." Kale and Lyra clung to Chad, their wide eyes on Fidbar. His rage flickered, caught between violence and retreat. With a snarl, he turned and stalked away, the air thick with his threat. Ayatu thought leaving Fidbar's employ would end her unease, but a creeping dread followed her. In Argob's bustling streets, where domed lights cast sharp shadows, she sensed eyes on her. A figure lingered at the edges, never close, but always there, a silent threat. One evening, returning home through quieter lanes, her instincts flared. The artificial glow flickered, stretching eerie silhouettes. Her pace quickened, heart pounding. A flicker of movement caught her eye. She halted, breath sharp, and turned. Fidbar stood at the street's end, half hidden by a corner, his dark eyes glinting in the gloom. "What are you doing?" Ayatu demanded, voice slicing the silence. Fidbar froze, caught, but his smirk slid back like a shield. "Just passing by," he said, voice smooth but strained. "You're following me," she accused, stepping forward, her strength a quiet storm. "Lurking, watching my home, what do you want?" His smirk wavered, frustration flashing. "What I want," he snapped. "You rejected me, humiliated me. I showed you kindness, treated you better than anyone, and you spit on it." Ayatu's fists clenched. "Kindness? You wanted control. You can't stand that I'm not yours to command." Fidbar advanced, anger twisting his face. "I care for you more than that weakling Chad ever could. He's nothing. I can give you what you deserve." Her voice was steel. "Stay away from me and my family, Fidbar. Come near us again, and I'll defend what's mine." Fidbar's rage simmered, his pale face taut. With a sharp exhale, he vanished into the dark, his footsteps a fading echo. That night, Chad recounted the encounter to Ayatu. Her face drained of color, hands trembling with fear and fury. "He won't stop," she whispered, voice heavy. "He's obsessed, Chad. This isn't just pride, it's dangerous." Chad took her hands, his grip firm. "We'll stop him. We'll protect each other, protect the twins. He won't take us down." Ayatu nodded, but Fidbar's shadow loomed large, a predator circling her family. The danger was no longer abstract, it was personal, and it was closing in.
To the Argob, death was a solemn rite, a rare fracture in their fragile society. With a population so small, each loss reverberated like a quake, mourned with ritual and dread. Murder was unthinkable, a myth, an aberration that threatened their delicate order. Even the council, ruthless in its control, shunned killing, knowing it could unravel their dominion. But Fidbar was no ordinary Argob. Beneath his polished charm churned a maelstrom of obsession and self-loathing. Ayatu's rejection wasn't a slight, it was a declaration of war. In his fractured mind, rules no longer applied. Night cloaked Argob's domed streets, their artificial lights casting a sterile glow. In the shadows outside Ayatu and Chaded's modest quarters, Fidbar paced, his pale face taut with rage. His breath came in shallow bursts, one hand gripping a paralytic gun, meant to stun, not kill. "She thinks she's above me," he muttered, voice a venomous whisper. "Above us, I'll make her see." Ayatu's calm defiance haunted him, her rejection a wound that festered. His dark eyes fixed on the unassuming door, its unlocked state of vulnerability he seized. With silent steps, he slipped inside, a specter of vengeance. The home was still, save for the hum of Argob's power grid. Fidbar crept through the cramped living space, his grip tightening on the gun. The bedroom door yielded with a faint creak, revealing Ayatu and Chade asleep, their vulnerability fueling his twisted triumph. "They'll regret this," he whispered, voice trembling with madness. He raised the gun, the first dart struck Ayatu, its electric pulse locking her muscles. Her eyes snapped open, mind racing with terror, but her body betrayed her, silent and immobile. Chade stirred, alarm flashing in his dark eyes. Before he could move, a second dart hit, freezing him in a rictus of fear and fury. Fidbar stepped forward, his smirk cruel. "Sweet dreams," he sneered, malice dripping from each word. Ayatu's heart thundered, her mind screaming to protect her children. But the paralysis held, and Fidbar's shadow moved down the hall toward Kale and Lyra's room. The children's door creaked, each sound a blade in Ayatu's chest. Her silent pleas tore through her. "Not them. Please, not my babies." In the dim room, Kale sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Who's there?" he mumbled, voice soft with sleep. Lyra blinked, her innocent gaze meeting Fidbar's looming figure. "What do we have here?" Fidbar murmured, his grin a twisted mask. Kale's frown deepened. "Who are you?" "Someone teaching your mother a lesson," Fidbar said, raising the gun. Ayatu's mind howled, willing her body to break free. The gun fired, not one dart but two, a malfunction born of Fidbar's trembling hand. They struck Kale, the force convulsing his small frame. His eyes widened, a gasp escaping before he crumpled, lifeless onto the bed. The world stopped. Ayatu's soul shattered, disbelief swallowing her whole. Lyra's scream pierced the silence, raw and anguished, her tiny hands reaching for her brother. Fidbar whirled, panic flashing. "Shut up," he snarled, firing again. The dart hit Lyra, her cry cut short as paralysis claimed her, her body slumping beside Kale's. Ayatu's muffled sobs broke through, her grief a tidal wave against the paralytic's grip. Fidbar stood frozen, chest heaving, the gun shaking in his hand. Kale's still form and Lyra's limp body stared back, a mirror to his unraveling. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he stammered, voice cracking. "She was supposed to see..." In the bedroom, Ayatu's sobs grew louder, her rage and sorrow a force beyond her frozen body. One thought burned through her pain. Fidbar's pale face gleamed with sweat, his eyes wild as he dragged Lyra's limp body into the bedroom. Her small frame slumped to the floor with a dull thud, a broken doll in his trembling hands. His breath came in jagged gasps, a manic glint betraying his descent into madness. Ayatu, paralyzed on the bed, glared with helpless fury, her tears carving paths through her grief. Her heart shattered anew at Lyra's stillness, her mind screaming against the chains of her frozen body. Fidbar crouched beside her, his voice a twisted mockery. "Good news and better news, Ayatu. Tonight, I made history." Her silent sobs shook her, rage and sorrow trapped within her immobile form. "The better news," he continued, grinning with sick glee, "is your boy's dead." Squeezed the dart gun too hard, too long. His laugh was hollow, a jagged edge in the quiet room. "It's for the best. Your hybrids, superior, dangerous, shouldn't exist. Pacing erratically, Fidbar's hands twitched, his grimace masquerading as a smile. And the good news? Your daughter lives. Strong, like you. But don't worry, I'll take her. Raise her to loathe herself. My little pet? He leaned down, pressing a grotesque kiss to Lyra's forehead, his lips lingering with perverse tenderness. Ayatu's mind roared, her spirit clawing at its prison. Fidbar's madness deepened, his movements frenetic. He drew a metallic device from his pocket, smooth, cylindrical, glowing with Argobian precision. Sharp, insect-like appendages unfurled as he activated it, their hum a sinister pulse. Argobians chase perfection, he said, holding the device aloft. Your family's a flawed experiment, Ayatu, worth studying though. He knelt beside Lyra, the device crawling onto her chest, its spindly limbs glinting. Ayatu's silent screams echoed in her skull, her heart fracturing at the sight. Not to worry, Fidbar sneered, glancing at her. It won't kill her, yet. Just refining her crass half. Let's see what survives. The machine's limbs pierced Lyra's skin, precise and merciless. Fidbar watched, entranced, his breath heavy with perverse delight. Art, he whispered. Dominance. Perfection. His body swayed, caught in a euphoric trance, the machine's whine a chilling hymn to his cruelty. Fidbar turned to Ayatu, his smirk widening as he loomed over her. First, a little fun, he said, voice chillingly casual. Right here before your pathetic husband. His fingers fumbled with his belt, clumsy but deliberate. Chated, frozen beside Ayatu, burned with impotent rage, his silent tears a mirror to her own. His mind churned with fury, helpless against the paralytic's grip. You should have chosen me, Fidbar hissed, inches from Ayatu's face, yanking her hair. I offered everything, but you humiliated me. Her eyes blazed defiance, tears tracing her resolve. I'll break you, he whispered, venom lacing his words, and you'll beg for it. Fidbar paused, head cocked as if hearing a phantom call. A guttural laugh escaped him, unhinged. What makes you crass? So resilient, he mused, voice lilting. Biology? Spirit? He produced a vial, its viscous, glowing liquid pulsing with menace. And my creation, he said, uncorking it. Let's test your limits. The liquid seared Ayatu's arm, hissing with acrid smoke. Pain tore through her, but her body remained locked, silent. The jagged scar glowed, a cruel brand. Beautiful, Fidbar murmured, awestruck. Stronger than I thought. We'll find your breaking point. Yet Ayatu's spirit held, her grief forging a resolve sharper than pain. Her eyes burned with a vow. This will not go. The bedroom was a receptacle of grief, the air thick with sweat and fear. Ayatu lay paralyzed, her body a prisoner to the dart's venom, but her soul roared, a maelstrom of sorrow, fury, and resolve. Beside her, Chaded's frozen form trembled with anguish, his dark eyes locked on hers, a silent plea to fight, unable to do so from the same dart. Lyra's small body lay crumpled on the floor, her shallow breaths a fragile thread of life. The sight of her daughter, so vulnerable, pierced Ayatu's heart, each heartbeat a vow to protect what remained. Fidbar loomed above, a specter of madness, his pale hands shaking with cruel delight. You, crass, are animals, he sneered, gripping Ayatu's shoulders, made to serve us. Now, you'll serve me. Her rage burned, a fire no paralytic could quench. Forged by Krasley's brutal gravity, Ayatu's body was a testament to survival. A faint heat stirred in her limbs, her resilient physiology clawing against the drug's grip. Her fingers twitched, unnoticed by Fidbar's deranged gloating. Slowly, the numbness ebbed, her strength defying the Argobian toxin. Fidbar's smirk faltered as Ayatu's hands snapped up, iron-strong, seizing his throat. His eyes widened in shock, his gasp choked off by her grip. What? He rasped, clawing at her hands. Panic, twisting his face. Ayatu's arms quaked, muscles straining against the lingering paralytic. Her son's smile, Kale's bright, lost light fueled her. You killed my son, she growled, voice raw with grief. You tore my family apart. Fidbar thrashed, his frail Argobian frame no match for her crassly honed power. His struggles weakened, his hands falling limp as his breath faded. Ayatu's tears fell, her grip unyielding, driven by a mother's wrath. His body stilled, eyes vacant. The room was silent save for Ayatu's ragged breaths. Ayatu knelt over Fidbar's lifeless form, her chest heaving. Grief, rage, and guilt collided within her. She had stopped him, saved Lyra and Chaded, but the act of killing weighed like Crassly's gravity. Among her people, taking a life, even in defense, was a sacred burden. Her hands trembled as she released his throat, her voice breaking. "Fidbar, I didn't want this," she whispered, tears staining his chest. "You were consumed by hate, blind to my humanity. You took my son, broke my heart, but I won't carry your poison." She pressed a hand to his chest, a crassly gesture of closure, honoring the life lost, however warped. Her resolve hardened. She would not let his darkness define her. Exhausted, Ayatu slumped beside Fidbar, her strength spent. She crawled to Lyra, stroking her daughter's hair, relief mingling with sorrow at her faint breaths. A guttural rasp shattered the silence. Ayatu froze, dread coiling in her gut. Fidbar's chest rose, a shallow shudder. "No," she breathed, eyes wide. His lids fluttered, revealing a glassy gaze. A rasping laugh scraped from his lips, venomous despite his frailty. "You think you've won?" he croaked. "You can't stop. What's coming?" Ayatu's blood chilled, his words a specter of further threats. She grabbed the fallen dart gun, hands trembling, but Fidbar's body slackened, his final breath a hiss. The silence returned, yet his warning echoed, a shadow of malice. An hour dragged by, heavy with loss. Ayatu sat, head bowed, sobs racking her frame. Behind her, Chaded stirred, the paralytic's hold loosening. His fingers twitched, then clenched, his body reclaiming itself. "Ayatu!" he rasped, eyes fluttering open, searching for her in the dim light. She turned, tears streaming, and touched his cheek. "Shaded," she whispered, voice cracking with relief. "We're alive. That's enough for now." Their hands entwined, a fragile anchor in the wreckage of their world.
The council chamber crackled with fury, its obsidian walls amplifying the councillors' outrage. Fidbar's murder, a crass killing an Argob, had fractured Argobian society's core. To the Argob, murder was a myth, a barbaric relic unthinkable. In their ordered world, the councillors, pale and severe, sat rigid, their black eyes glinting with contempt. Their fingers drummed the polished table, a staccato of rage. "This is an abomination." One councillor spat, gesturing at Oyar's projected image. "We harbored a crass beast, and she repays us with savagery." Another leaned forward, voice icy. "She proves what we've always known. Crass are violent, primitive. They threaten our civilization." Murmurs of assent rippled, but unease flickered beneath their scorn. Argobian law offered no precedent for a crass killing an Argob. The crass were tools, not equals. Prosecuting Aryu as a person would grant her humanity, a notion that repulsed them. Hashim rose, his robes flowing like shadow, silencing the room with his cold gaze. "This cannot go unpunished," he said, voice smooth yet venomous. "Fidbar's death challenges our dominion, but we won't stoop to treating her as one of us." His eyes narrowed. "Aryu and her family will be exiled to Cressley. Let them crawl back to their jungle, their failure. They'll no longer defile." Argob, approval surged, but a councillor hesitated, her voice soft. "And Fidbar's death? Do we let it pass?" Hashim's smile was a blade. "We're not savages. Our laws shun execution. Exile is enough. Let her choke on her guilt, and let Cressley remind her of her place." The chamber nodded, their decision sealed. Hashim's wrath extended beyond Aryu. Fidbar's obsession had unwittingly unveiled a deeper threat. The underground movement. Before his death, Fidbar's stalking of Aryu led him to shallow Chadid. In a concealed alley, he'd spied a clandestine meeting Argobians and Crass united, their voices low with defiance. The underground plotted to expose the council's exploitation of Crassley and rally dissent, eager to crush Chadid and gain favor. Fidbar had delivered this intelligence to Hashim. The revelation ignited Hashim's fury. Dissent was a crack in his absolute control, and an organized resistance was intolerable. "This is treason," Hashim growled, poring over Fidbar's encrypted files. Plans to unveil the council's schemes, warn Crassley's people, and sway our Gobian allies fueled his rage. "They dare challenge our order." His hands shook, voice a low snarl. "They'll pay for this insolence." The council struck with precision. Under night's cover, enforcers raided suspected underground homes, dragging members into the streets. Faces flashed across city screens, branded as traitors, their shame a public spectacle. Hashim's broadcast chilled Arga. Projected on every dome, his voice was calm, lethal. "The underground threatens our unity, our future," he declared. "We will eradicate them. Treachery has no place here." The streets hushed, Argobians watching with fear and doubt. But the council's triumph was incomplete. Chadid and the underground's core had vanished, their communications encrypted, their hideouts abandoned in a private chamber. Hashim paced, fury coiling like a storm. "This isn't over," he snarled. "The underground will be crushed. Their existence marks us," a councillor ventured, voice trembling. "Exile seems lenient for such crimes." "Lenient?" Hashim's gaze cut like glass. "Mercy is weakness. Exile to Crassley isn't kindness, it's a brand of their inferiority." The councillors assented, cowed by his wrath. All captured underground members and their families would face exile, a punishment designed to break their spirits. "Let them suffer," Hashim said, voice final. "Let Argob see the cost of defiance."
Argob's streets lay hushed, their electric hum a cold pulse in the night. Chad moved through the shadows, each step heavy with dread. His heart thundered, grief and fury warring within him. He'd escaped by chance. While meeting a sympathizer across the city, enforcers had raided his home. Returning to find doors shattered, Ayatu and the children gone, and the sterile scent of Argobian uniforms lingering, he'd collapsed against the doorframe, breath ragged. The image of his family in the council's grip burned, a wound of helplessness. But despair was a luxury he couldn't afford. The council's hunt for him was closing in, and the underground teetered on collapse. He had to act, or their fight would die. Chad's encrypted message to the underground's remnants was brief: "The council thinks us broken, but we'll rise, stronger, smarter. Hide. Await my signal." Now, in an abandoned substation's dim flicker, he waited, eyes scanning the dark. His hand hovered near a concealed blade, every rustle sharpening his nerves. "Relax," a whisper cut through. Kubel emerged, his lanky frame gaunt under the substation's weak light, his angular face tense. "Kubel," Chad exhaled, relief fleeting. "Chad," Kubel said, voice urgent. "What happened? Where's Ayatu? The kids?" Chad's face crumpled, grief raw. "They took them. Enforcers hit while I was gone. They're with the council now." Kubel's eyes darkened, pacing with agitation. "Damn it, I warned you about Fidbar. His obsession, he was watching you. This is his poison." "I know," Chad said, guilt heavy. "I failed them. But regrets won't save them now. We fight on."
In the substation's gloom, Chadid and Kubel plotted. "Find the others," Kubel said. "The ones still free." "We regroup quietly, and we signal the Crassley exiles," Chadid added. "They'll expect surrender. We'll give them defiance." Kubel's smirk held a spark. "Stubborn as ever," Chadid. "Good. We need that." Chadid's faint smile faded. "This is for every Crass crushed, every Argobian blinded by lies. For a future where Lyra can live free." Kubel gripped his shoulder. "Then let's do it." In the shadows, a new fight took root, far from over. You're the blueprint, don't let anyone treat you like a rough draft. The night was heavy, a suffocating quiet broken only by the thud of boots. Argobian guards stormed the family's home with cold precision, offering no mercy, no pause for grief. Ayatu, Chadid, and Lyra were herded into the streets, the council's exile decree unyielding. Argob's domed avenues stood empty, save for pale faces peering from shadowed windows. Venomous whispers trailed them. "She killed one of us," a voice hissed. "Exile's too kind," another sneered, sharp as a blade. Chadid cradled Lyra, her small body pressed to his chest, shielding her from the scorn. Ayatu walked tall, her gaze defiant despite the weight of loss and shame. She would not let Argob break her spirit. The transport vessel loomed, its metallic shell stark and unforgiving. Inside, the family huddled, the hum of engines a cold pulse. Lyra clung to Ayatu, her eyes wide with fear. Ayatu stroked her hair, whispering, "We're together, my love." The journey was silent, the void beyond the hull mirroring their uncertainty. As the ship breached Krasley's dense atmosphere, Ayatu peered through a small window. Below, a jungle sprawled, wild, vibrant, dotted with the ruins of her people, reclaimed by nature's embrace. The guards shoved them out, the jungle's humid breath enveloping them. "Survive, if you can," one barked before the ship roared skyward, vanishing into the clouds. Krasley's jungle pulsed with life, rustling leaves, distant creature calls. Lyra gripped Ayatu's hand, her voice trembling. "Mama, where are we?" Ayatu knelt, meeting her daughter's gaze, her voice soft but steady. "This is Krasley, Lyra. Our true home." Lyra's brow creased. "But Argob, my friends, Kale?" Ayatu's heart fractured at Kale's name, but she held firm, hands on Lyra's shoulders. Argob was a cage, not a home. Krasley's wild, but it's ours. Here, we're free. Lyra's lip quivered. "I'll be alone." Ayatu drew her into an embrace, stroking her hair. "Never alone, little one. You'll find friends here, others like us, cast out but strong. We'll build a place where you're loved for you." "Like me?" Lyra mumbled, muffled against her mother. "Yes," Ayatu said, a sad smile breaking through. "I promise, Lyra, we'll make a home, a safe haven, where you can shine." Lyra sniffled, hope flickering in her eyes. "Okay, Mama." Ayatu kissed her forehead, her resolve a quiet fire. She would carve a future for Lyra, no matter the cost. Chadid stepped beside Ayatu, his voice low. "This is where we began," he said, gazing at the ruins, crumbling stone entwined with vines. "I asked them to leave us here." Ayatu nodded, her eyes tracing the remnants of Krasley's past, alive with insect hums and animal calls, a stark contrast to Argob's sterile domes. "And here," she said, voice firm, "we'll start anew." Chadid's fingers laced with hers. "We can't undo the past or bring Kale back. But we can build a future, a home. Together," Ayatu said, her gaze fierce. "Together," Chadid echoed, his voice thick with resolve. Weeks passed in toil. Ayatu and Chadid cleared jungle growth, shored up ancient walls, and hunted for sustenance. Lyra, her grief for Kale a quiet shadow, found purpose in small tasks, patching stone, gathering roots. Her spirit mended, stitch by stitch, in their shared labor. The ruins transformed, a vision taking shape, a settlement for outcasts, hybrids, and the rejected, a sanctuary born from loss. One evening, as amber light bathed the jungle, Ayatu stood atop a weathered wall, Lyra at her side. The horizon glowed, Krasley's wild heart humming around them. "Mama?" Lyra's voice was soft but sure. "Yes, my love? When our home's ready, can we invite others? People with nowhere else?" Ayatu's heart swelled, pride warming her. "Yes, Lyra, that's our dream." Lyra's hand tightened in hers, and Ayatu felt hope take root, a fragile, fierce spark in the wilderness.
The council chamber thrummed with cold ambition, its obsidian walls echoing calculated fury. Fidbar's death and the underground's exposure had rattled Argob's elite. But the council saw opportunity in the chaos, a chance to tighten their grip. Councillor Vera's voice sliced through the murmurs. The Crass are savages, incapable of reason, unfit for our world, yet their strength surpasses ours. That makes them valuable. Councillor Lethus leaned forward, his black eyes glinting. Tools, he hissed, resources to exploit. Their resilience should serve us, not defy us. Hashim, at the table's head, steepled his pale fingers, his gaze unreadable. As silence fell, his voice cut through, calm but lethal. Exactly. The Crass are assets, not equals. Our duty is to extract their worth. Nods sealed their consensus. The next day, Argobian ships descended on Krasley, vultures tearing into the jungle. Families were ripped apart, herded into labor camps, their dignity stripped as they became cogs in Argob's machine. This was no impulse, it was Hashim's design. Late in the night, Hashim rose, his robes pooling like shadow. This is no failure, he said, leaning forward, voice steady. It's victory. Councillor Vera frowned. Victory, Fidbar's dead. The underground exposed our cracks. How is this triumph? Hashim's smile was ice. Chaos breeds control. Fidbar's death, the underground's treachery, they've given us cause to act. The Crass are now a necessity. The chamber hushed as he continued. Their strength, their endurance, we've plundered Krasley's resources but spared its people. No longer. Argob's fear demands stability, and they'll accept any measure to secure it. Lethus smirked. We enslave them, cloaked as protection. Precisely, Hashim said. The Crass will be relocated, controlled, utilized. Resistors will share the underground's fate. Vera's unease faded, replaced by grim approval. And the exiles? Ayatu? Chaded? Let them fester on Krasley, Hashim said, smile widening. Their survival fuels false hope, a hope we'll crush when it suits us. Among Argob's elite, Bastion played a perilous game. A financier of the underground, they masked their defiance with polished smiles, nodding at Hashim's decrees while funneling wealth to the resistance. Their resources, safe houses, tech, funds, had kept the underground alive. When Fidbar's betrayal sparked arrests, Bastion's foresight saved them. Every trace of their involvement was erased, leaving the council blind. Yet they didn't falter. Through encrypted channels and covert drops, Bastion supplied Ayatu, Chaded, and Krasley's exiles, a silent lifeline in the dark. In council halls, Bastion's every gesture was calculated, a predator among prey, awaiting the moment to strike. On Krasley, exile forged Ayatu and Chaded's resolve. Kale's loss was a wound that bled, but their fight burned fiercer. One evening, as gold light bathed the jungle, Ayatu stood at the ruin's edge, eyes fixed on the wild horizon. They think they've won, she said, voice steady, fierce. Chaded joined her, hand on her shoulder. They think they've silenced us. They haven't, Ayatu said, fists clenched. We fight for Kale, for Lyra, for all chained by the council. Chaded's nod was resolute. Not just survival, freedom. Their settlement grew, fueled by Bastion's aid. Food, tools, messages. Exiles trickled in, drawn by whispers of sanctuary. The ruins, once relics of lost, became a stronghold, a spark of rebellion in an oppressed world. Hashim's plan seemed ironclad, but fissures formed. In Krasley's labor camps, the enslaved Crass whispered defiance, their spirits unbroken. Hope flickered, a quiet rebellion. In the jungle, Ayatu's settlement thrived. One night, by a fire's glow, she addressed the exiles, her voice a clarion call. We're not just survivors, she said, eyes alight. We're fighters, builders. The council seeks to chain us, but Crass endure. We will rise. The exiles' nods carried a shared vow, their spirits kindled. Far off, in Argob's sterile halls, Hashim sat, oblivious to the cracks in his chains, the rebellion slipping through his grasp. Ayatu stood at the jungle's edge, her gaze piercing the horizon where Argobian ships prowled like predators. Krasley's wild chorus, cries of creatures, rustling leaves, surrounded her, but her heart burned with her people's plight. The The Crass, herded into slavery, were stripped of freedom, their spirits ground under Argob's heel. Her fur, once lush, hung patchy, a stark testament to Argob's cruel experiments. They'd sought to erase her identity, but each scar forged her stronger. Ayatu's resolve was a blade, unyielding. The jungle's earthy breath stirred her, grounding her roots. She drew Lyra close, her hand firm on her daughter's shoulder. Lyra, marked by loss, stood with quiet strength. "We'll endure," Ayatu whispered. "We'll rebuild, grow fierce. One day, we'll reclaim what's ours." Cheta joined her, his hand entwining with hers. "Together," he said, his calm resolve an anchor. Ayatu's eyes blazed. Crasly's vast wilds were daunting, but her fight, for family, for Crass, was unshakable. Weeks of toil transformed the ruins, cleared paths, reinforced walls, and the hum of life revived the ancient stones. Ayatu's settlement was no mere refuge, it was a community, a spark of hope. One humid afternoon as Ayatu guided repairs, a scout raced to her, eyes wide. "Leader, Crass refugees at the jungle's edge, a man among them, Debray." Ayatu froze, the name a thunderbolt. Her pulse surged, hope, fear, disbelief. Her father? She hastened through the jungle, vines brushing her as the ruins faded behind. At the clearing she halted. Amid weary Crass stood Debray, his once robust frame gaunt, fur-grayed. Yet his presence commanded, eyes sharp with life. "Father," Ayatu breathed, voice trembling. Debray turned, his gaze locking on hers. Recognition broke across his face, and Ayatu ran, tears falling as she embraced him. "My daughter," Debray choked, holding her tight. "I thought you were gone." "I thought the same," Ayatu sobbed, clinging to him. They parted, and Debray's eyes traced her scarred fur, pain etching his face. "What have they done to you?" he whispered. "They tried to break me," Ayatu said, chin high. "They failed. I'm here, fighting." Debray's tears fell, his pride fierce. "You're a warrior, Ayatu, a leader beyond my dreams." She gripped his hands, smiling through tears. "For you, for our people." Back at the settlement, Ayatu introduced Lyra to Debray. The girl, healing but fragile, clung to her mother. "This is Lyra, my daughter," Ayatu said, hand protective. Debray knelt, his weathered face soft. "Hello, little one. You have your mother's fire." Lyra hesitated, then took his offered hand. "I miss my brother," she whispered. "He was killed." Debray's grief surfaced, and he drew her into a gentle embrace. "I know, child. We'll honor him, together." Lyra's arms encircled him, a spark of hope in her eyes. Ayatu's heart warmed, seeing her daughter's trust. Debray turned to Ayatu, voice heavy. "Who took your son?" "A madman," Ayatu said, voice cold. "I ended him. Then I forgave him." "Forgave?" Debray's brow furrowed. "Hate broke him, fuels the council," Ayatu said, resolute. "I won't let it consume me. The council didn't care about Kale. They banished us to silence us. He was their pawn." Debray's fists clenched. "They'll pay. With hope, not hate," Ayatu said. "That's our strength." The settlement flourished, drawing exiles with whispers of sanctuary. Under Ayatu's guidance, it became a symbol of defiance. One evening, atop a sturdy platform, Ayatu addressed a growing crowd, her voice a clarion. "We've been crushed, broken," she said, eyes sweeping the Crass. "But we're not defeated. We're not tools. We're Crass. We endure." Murmurs of assent rose, spirits kindling. "This settlement isn't just refuge," she continued. "It's our defiance, our hope. The Argob think us silenced. They've made us fear." Cheta stepped forward, voice steady. "We rise. For our children, for freedom." The crowd's resolve solidified, a flame in Crasly's wild heart. The jungle ruins pulsed with life, their ancient stones now a cradle of hope. Where decay once reigned, exiles, refugees, and underground allies toiled together, forging shelters, clearing vines, and raising walls. Hammer strikes, laughter, and voices of resilience filled Crasly's wild air. Ayatu stood atop a sturdy platform, her gaze sweeping the gathered crowd. Their faces, scarred by loss yet alight with defiance, stirred pride in her chest. She raised a hand, and silence fell, every eye on her. "These ruins were our past," she said, voice clear, resonant. "A shadow of what we lost. Today they become our future, a bastion of strength, of hope." Her eyes blazed, gesturing to the vibrant settlement. "We name this place Dawa, not just a city, but a sanctuary, for Crass, for hybrids, for all who seek freedom." Cheers erupted, a tide of resolve crashing through the jungle. Ayatu stood tall, the crowd's hope a fire in her soul. Dawa was real, a vow that the Crass would reclaim their destiny. Dibre, village elder, and Ayatu's father stepped forward, his weathered frame commanding. His graying fur and sharp eyes bore a lifetime's struggle, yet his voice rang with conviction. "For too long the Argob chained us," he began, words steady. "They stole our land, our dignity, our freedom. Their lies bound us. No more." The crowd's murmurs grew, a shared defiance. "Ayatu has shown us we can resist," Dibre said, voice rising. "We can build a home where our children thrive, fearless. Dawa will be our pride." He thrust a fist skyward. "For Dawa! For freedom!" The roar that followed united villagers, exiles, and rebels. Dibre's words, paired with Ayatu's vision, cemented their allegiance. Whispers of Dawa spread, drawing outcasts from Crasly's depths, a beacon against Agobian chains. That evening, as Dawa hummed with purpose, Ayatu stole a quiet moment on a stone wall, the jungle's horizon aglow. Dibre sat beside her, his presence a steady comfort. She smirked, glancing at him. "Your first thinning, father?" Dibre chuckled, patting his graying coat. "Nonsense, strong as ever." "Really?" Ayatu teased, eyes dancing. "That bald patch says otherwise. You'll be smooth as Chaded soon." His deep laugh echoed, drawing curious glances. "Cheeky as always," he said, then arched a brow. "And you? Think you'll keep that patchy fur? Running Dawa?" Ayatu's grin turned sly. "Didn't I warn you? The anti-radiation meds we take here, they cause hair loss. You'll be bald by spring." Debre's eyes narrowed. Then he roared with laughter, wiping a tear. "You're awful, Ayatu. But if baldness is Dawa's price, I'll pay it. This place is worth everything." Her teasing softened to warmth. "Thank you, father, for believing in me. In us." Debre's hand rested on her shoulder, firm. "You've given us hope, Ayatu. That's worth more than all Crasly's jungles." As sunset bathed Dawa in gold, Ayatu stood on the highest platform, overlooking the thriving settlement. Fires flickered, voices rose in song, and the ruins pulsed with life. Chaded, Lyra, and Debre stood beside her, their presence her anchor. "This is just the beginning," Ayatu said, voice quiet but fierce. Chadid's hand found hers, warm and steady. "We'll make it extraordinary." Lyra tugged Ayatu's sleeve, eyes wide. "Mama, would Kayolev like Dawa?" Ayatu knelt, brushing Lyra's hair back. "He'd have loved it," she said softly, "and he'd be so proud of your courage." Lyra's small smile warmed Ayatu's heart. As stars pierced the sky, Ayatu rose, gaze fixed on the horizon. Dawa was more than stone and hope. It was her legacy, a testament to Crass resilience. The jungle sang, and Ayatu knew. The fight endured, but with Dawa as their heart, they'd face it. Together.